Good evening and welcome to our Tuesday, April 28th Basalt Town Council meeting. But prior to the meeting, we had a work session over at 555. You guys ready?
Never.
We had a work session over at 555 Basalt Avenue, and now we're here and with you all. And I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And just a reminder, if you'd like to access the meeting online, you can do so by going to basalt.net, clicking on the Agendas and Minutes tab, and then going to the April 28th meeting packet, and all the Zoom instructions are there. That'll enable you to actually participate in the meeting versus just watch it on Grassroots on TV. So with that, I will ask Pam to please call the roll.
Absolutely. Let us start with Dieter Schindler.
Present.
Angela Anderson.
Here.
Rick Stevens.
Here.
Hannah Berman.
Here.
Thank you, Hannah. Angèle Dupré-Bouchard. She might be here a little later. Ryan Slack
Here.
and David Knight.
Here.
For long. Not for long.
Thank you all.
What a dig, Rick.
Can't wait.
Jeez, man.
All right, next up we have
We're
item
crying
2,
now.
which is our consent agenda. And that consists of the minutes, item 2A, the minutes of March 10th, 2026. Item 2B, the minutes from April 14th, 2026. And item 2C, which is a letter in opposition to Proposition 175. I did have one quick thing I noticed on there. I wanted
Yes.
to make sure that the minutes on March 10th reflected my shout out for basketball coaching was for Ryan Slack, not Ryan Mahoney.
Oh,
Nothing
thank
against
you.
Ryan Mahoney, but we gotta
Guy's gone.
Oh, what a slap.
Any credit. Come on.
What a slap.
What's going
I'm
on
sorry.
here? Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Jeez.
Thank you.
So I would actually I read the minutes and make sure.
Hey, listen. That was the one I was supposed to catch.
So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda items as amended.
Mayor, so moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, thank you, everybody. Next up, we have our call to the public, and just some reminders and the ground rules for that. Limit your comments to 3 minutes, and this is the Ryan's swan song of timing. The council or public comments.
Over here. Where we went?
Oh, you had to step out. Identify yourself by name and address when making comments, and there's a sign-in sheet in the back of the room as well that I'd like you to fill out. Please be courteous, civil, and constructive, which everybody usually is, so thank you in advance. And town council will make no decision or take action except to direct the town manager. So with that, I'll open the floor to council comments. Just one other comment about the council comments before anybody comes up. We do have 2 public hearings, so if you'd like your comments to be part of the record for those public hearings, I would recommend you wait until those public hearings to make the comments. But otherwise, floor is open, so please come up. There, we have a public hearing for 555 Basalt Avenue and a public hearing for code amendments related to wildfire, and that's coming up. It says 7:20 and 8:20 on the 7:20 for 555, 8:20 for the wildfire. So if
We're not here for either of those items, so we're just here for a public.
by all means,
Get
come
it
on
up here.
All right. Hi, my name's Amy Marin. I live on Homestead Drive. I have some of my neighbors with me tonight. And I wanted to welcome the new town council members, but are they not here tonight? I mean,
There's one
Angela-
behind you.
But,
They haven't been sworn in yet, Amy, but they will be.
oh, I see. Yeah, I knew
Here
that
on
was
the agenda,
happening. I was trying to hit 2 birds with 1 stone. We have brought a letter. Pam has letters that we're going to hand out to the new town council members. An ongoing issue that we've had on Homestead Drive is basically this letter that you'll get is spelling out our request for permitted parking for homeowners especially, and time parking possibly in some fashion, or maybe even signs that, maybe could suggest time parking, 2 hour, 3 hour limit. Because what's happened with the new downtown, so beautiful, there's time parking here, and now everybody's parking on Homestead Drive, and we don't have a whole lot of parking for all the residences. And we did do some data collection, and that's in the letter too, that we'll talk to you guys about, show you what we collected and what our needs are right now. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I'm here. I'm Heather George. I live at 200 East Homestead, and I came to back Amy up and welcome the new folks too. And we have a 3-day time limit on parking, so a lot of residents are getting tickets, which is challenging. We're literally just moving our cars to not get tickets on our street, while we then have other people who don't live on the street parking their cars there for days. So that's kind of the trick. And the letters we did, we really researched a lot of other towns and what they were doing that solved this problem, we think, pretty easily. And my big push for pretty quickly. So we have a really great community of homeowners that are happy to work with the town to figure out how to start doing pretty actionable, easy steps. So we tried to include a lot of that in the letter. And I think is that the only thing I needed to say?
Did you talk? Yes, yeah, I think that's it. We have a speeding issue too, but
Yeah.
that's being.
I'm trying to get you a speeding camera, but I'm gone, so.
Yeah, so the speeding things, I think a little bit more straightforward and simple. The parking, I think there are some really straightforward options that we've proposed that other towns have done that are pretty inexpensive and easy to implement. And our biggest concern was just the getting it put in a pile of paper in the town and it not getting acted on before the summer, because we really see a lot of issues happening for this summer. We're excited about downtown. We're all on the same page as that, but our little street's going to get really impacted. So if we can help you guys in any way before then, that's kind of what I came here to even almost ask that question now or later, or say, how can we engage with you guys to do things over the next few months so we go into the summer with a little bit of a plan?
Thank you for the comments. Gloria, I know this is something you're looking into as far as just kind of assessing the situation. Do you want to make any comments now, or?
Yeah, I've met with the group several times. I haven't met you two, but I know we've emailed back and forth.
Oh, yeah.
So we have been talking through this. We have been collecting our own data, and it doesn't match with their data yet. So right now we are seeing that there are spaces available, but we are taking it right now, which is probably not the busy time, which is this summer. We're also looking at what it would cost us for permitted parking, just to have that information for you all in case you ever decided to direct me to bring that to council.
Okay. And once we get through that, I think we would like to see what you guys come up with too, comparatively, and then.
Would you like that as a future agenda item?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
Thank you for raising it. Anybody else? The floor is still open. All right. Anybody online? So I'll go ahead and close that section of the meeting out, and we'll move on to mayor and council reports and comments. What do you all have?
Well, this is my last comment. I know there's another chance for comments, but once again, a big thank you to all staff. We are so lucky in this town to have a great staff, and it's just been a pleasure. I'm super grateful to have been here, worked with all of you. So, that's all.
Yes, we are grateful to you.
Mute me.
Is this our chance to give him the attaboy, or?
We got a whole section.
No, we got a whole segment for that, Rick. I hope you have good words.
I've prepared to make a long speech.
All right, anybody
Long as you
else?
want,
I don't have anything for this
No
section.
timer.
I wanted to say thank you to Bach for helping to fund the Basalt Spring musical. It was lovely. Those girls up there were so talented. They did a great job. I don't know if any of you know, it was the six wives of Henry VIII. And they sang their hearts out. It was amazing. It was a really good use of Bach funds, I think, to support those kids. And thank you to Taka also for producing a dry run show for them.
Was it Bach or BPAC?
Sorry, BPAC.
Okay,
I was
B-
kinda
No,
confused at
they
the
did not get
bottom,
any affordable housing dollars. BPAC. Thank you to BPAC. I think that was really a good spend. And thank you to TACA, because they're so supportive of the youth. I really appreciate it.
great comment, thank you. Anyone else? All right, so we will move on to the manager's report. Gloria, you have some new sections, and I'll let you.
I do have some new sections. You'll find these notice of administrative decisions in my manager's report. This is an attempt to be more transparent with staff determinations and something that we're exploring to codify in the new land use code. So no action is necessary by you all. It is more of a kind of an area in the agenda that you can review. And then, you know, if you think that a policy change should come out of it, because you'll see our decisions made, that's something that you all can bring up to us. So curious to hear your thoughts on it and if it's useful or not, basically. And then, did you guys have any questions on that?
No, I mean, I think those were two interesting updates, and
Yeah.
appreciate you surfacing those and the transparency. So I think this is a good addition.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, we'll keep them going, and something we're looking at for the new land use code, which is currently 50% drafted. So they were actually out there at Earth Day getting some comments on that. So a great Earth Day. We had a wonderful turnout for our Earth Day. And now we are in spring cleanup, so that's going on right now. I wanted to highlight that for everyone. There's a little flyer up here, April 24th to May 4th. So we do have the spring cleanup, and then we will also have our chipping program as well, and that'll be a little later.
On that, can we activate the Basalt sign for that? Because I don't think enough people know about, I remember that coming out, hearing about it at the emergency meeting, and it's so awesome that Eagle County is offering this up to the town. We do the dumpsters, which is amazing too, but this chip program is a huge opportunity for the residents of Basalt to do their own fire mitigation, to have the fire department come out. They have an amazing program. They will come assess your house, your property, give you ideas of what to do, and especially the curb chipping program. You don't have to take it to one of our dumpsters. You're just gonna be able to set it on the curb, and they're gonna take care of it. And it's really, I do appreciate that Eagle County has launched that on our side too.
I'll look into that.
Yeah, let's get,
Using
I don't know how we can get the word out there, but there's gotta be some way that, I think the signage is huge.
We'll chat about that. And then we are also hosting an open house at Cliffs Hillside Park from 10 to 12 on Saturday, May 2nd. The goal of the open house is to update the neighborhood on the status of the project and seek feedback with a couple of sketch options. So hopefully people can swing by there before, I know there's a lot of events going on Saturday, but hopefully they can swing by there. We're also hiring for a facilities maintenance technician as well as a building official. So Mitch will be retiring in December, and we are looking to get someone on board to follow him or to shadow him basically for several months before he leaves. So that is out there right now. And then I think last meeting it was mentioned about the underpass on Midland, and I just kind of wanted to give you guys an update on that. So it has made it onto the 2025 Intermountain TPR project list. So transportation, what is TPR? Transportation.
Used to be iced tea.
Yeah, audience. And so we are on the list. This is managed by our local CDOT, and but we do have quite a few ahead of us, and that includes the entrance to Aspen and those other projects in the valley. So we do compete with those projects for that funding. So just kind of wanted to give you an update on where that Midland connection project.
Straight shot?
Yeah, the straight shot.
What kind of, support would they give? Like, what are some of the possibilities as far as the amount of money and But you don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah, so that would be a financial support from CDOT and as well as approval for the project, so.
In its entirety or a portion of it, or?
I would have to look into, I know making it on the list is a good thing, but we could be on the list for 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of projects out there.
Yeah. We are looking at exploring alternate emergency egresses at this time, but that's kind of where we're at.
Great. Anything else on that?
Maybe some of that is related to the river master plan in the past, and I don't know if any of that stuff would be valuable in going forward with trying to convince them to move us up in line, but there was a significant amount of engineering planning, infrastructure improvements. The library has that pool area in front of it. And there's a lot of data, a lot of reasons why we were looking at it a long time ago. So that may be able to be refreshed without a lot of effort, potentially. Those guys are still around that did that work.
I'll look into that.
This is a random one on that, but I wonder the utilization of the boring company. Elon Musk has dug all these tunnels in Vegas, and I don't think it did a lot of disruption to above, and I just wonder where that technology could be used in some of these situations, whether it's under like that Midland Direct, or, we talk about all these animal crossings now. I just feel like technology could be used in this micro construction that we're not currently looking at, and it's probably too big and such, but it's something to look at. He's created crazy tunnels in Vegas that there's private Tesla transportation now to the airport from hotels. So
Yeah.
just a random one.
We'll continue to explore it.
Well, thanks for that update. That's important. I know it's been raised as far as the egress and emergency element to that, so it's good. Did you have anything else?
No, and then we had the staff reports on this one, so if you have any questions on that.
Any questions for Gloria?
Are we gonna talk about the committees before that are listed, the 5B and 5C? Under your manager's report?
Oh, so those they're more of updates, so they already happened.
Oh,
The
right.
determination was already made by staff
Oh,
under
right.
our purview. It is just more of a heads up, this is what we decided, and kind of giving you that context.
Did they establish the work study thing? Sorry, I didn't. So.
Yeah, the
Okay.
work study is a requirement for students. For full-time employees of
Okay.
CMC, they've got the employment requirement.
Awesome.
Great.
So as the year progresses, there'll be more administration determination number.
Yes, under manager's report.
Yeah. So that's good. That's good. Cool. Well, thank you, Gloria. Next up, we have item 6A, which is Chris Klug Foundation Proclamation for Organ Donation Month, and we have Jesse and Michelle. So come on up.
And Mary Ryerson here with me.
Great. Well, you guys can come up to the desk there with the microphone and.
Do you want us to go first?
Yeah. What do you?
Great. Okay, I'm Jessie. I'm the executive director of the Chris Klug Foundation, and I just wanted to say a very big thank you to all of you guys for having us here today. April is a big month for us in the donation and transplantation world. It is National Donate Life Month, and it's a time where we like to share our message as far and wide as possible. The foundation is comprised of 2 full-time staff members, and so any opportunity we can get out into the public and connect with new and different audiences is just really, really important to us and really great. I am the daughter of a heart transplant recipient. My dad got a new heart 10 years ago, and so because somebody said yes, a whole decade later, he is still here. So as you can imagine, it's deeply personal work for me. Mary speaks to the other side of it as a donor mom. So you've got the full spectrum here between the 2 of us. And I just like to remind people when I get the chance that there's really 2 important steps to it. Checking the box is huge, but having that conversation with your family is the other part of it. It's really important to share that decision. And so we work really hard to educate the public and hopefully inspire them to say yes. And then the other thing is there's a lot of things you can still do while you're alive. Deceased donation is a really beautiful gift, but living donation exists too. You can also donate blood or join the blood stem cell and bone marrow registry. And then finally, we have a big year here in Colorado because the Transplant Games of America are coming to Denver in June, which is really special. They happen every 2 years. It's basically the Olympics for the donation and transplantation world. And it's a really beautiful celebration. It's open to the public for viewing, and then there's different activities that the public can do as well. Like I'm gonna do the 5K and some trivia, because why not? Mary, would you like to?
No, I encourage with you, I encourage everybody to have the conversation, but to also ask other people to sign up. I know we still get letters because Lauren donated tissue and eye and muscle, and we still get letters because that tissue is viable for a very long period of time. So even if you can't use the organs, that was in our case, you can use the other things. But it's nice to know he lives somewhere.
And what specifically, you mentioned checking the box, what can people do to
Thank you for
actually
asking.
go?
So most people do it at the DMV. That's generally where you're asked the first time as a 15 or 16-year-old, and then when you go to renew the license. The beauty with technology these days is the iPhone. You can do it through Apple Health. We have a page on our website that connects to the National Registry, and it's just basically your contact info. It is a binding agreement, so you do want to make sure that it's something that you actually want to say yes to, but it's very, very simple to sign up.
Great. Thank you for that, for all your work in this and supporting and bringing the information out, because I think it's an ongoing challenge, from my understanding, with getting organs at the right place in the right time. So the more people, do you need your blood type on listed in there for that as well?
No,
Okay.
no, they'll figure it out from there. So just making sure that you're signed up is step 1, and then letting your family know, step 2.
Yeah, that's important as well, so thank you for that. We do have a proclamation. I'll go ahead and read here. So the Town of Basalt, Colorado, National Donate Life Month Proclamation, April 2026. Whereas this April 2026 marks the 23rd National Donate Life Month, the time to raise awareness of organ, eye, and tissue donation, encourage Americans to register as donors, and honor those who have saved and healed lives through the gift of donation. And whereas Colorado has been a leader in the nation with nearly 900,000 Coloradans registered to be organ, eye, and tissue donors at the DMV, and whereas Donor Alliance, along with their Colorado State Team Community Partner, the Chris Klug Foundation, educate residents in Colorado and Wyoming on the life-saving benefits in organ and tissue donation, inspire them to register as donors, and encourage them to share the decision with their family. And whereas one donor can save up to 8 lives through organ donation, restore sight in up to 2 people through cornea transplants, and save and heal more than 75 lives through tissue donation. And whereas in Colorado and most of Wyoming in 2025, a record 314 heroic organ donors provided 1,036 life-saving transplants, 1,880 heroic tissue donors saved and healed more than 140,000 lives with tissue grafts. And whereas registering gives hope to more than 1,400 people in Colorado and Wyoming waiting for a life-saving organ transplant while compassionately celebrating donors and their families for the gift of life. And whereas organ, eye, and tissue donation would not be possible without our community coming together for one purpose, one united purpose, saying yes to be an organ, eye, and tissue donor means you are not just checking a box, you are saving and healing lives. Now therefore I, David Knight, Mayor of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2026 as National Donate Life Month. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the Town of Basalt, Colorado to be affixed this 28th day of April 2026. So thank you again for all this, and I'll go ahead and sign and pass this around.
Also, if anyone wants to donate blood, the Blood Mobile will be here next month at the library.
Do you know what day?
I should have.
Where can they go? Where can people
Like
go
the
look?
12th or the 15th.
The library
But it'll be at the
On
library.
the library, I'll have it in their calendar.
website will
Yeah.
There
probably
you go.
have that listed, I would
Wonderful.
imagine.
Well, thank you.
Thank you guys
We'll go
again.
ahead and,
Pam,
Thank
thanks
you.
for helping.
You're welcome, Jesse. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Also, nice to meet you guys. So if you want to just.
Sure.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thank you.
you're welcome, thank you. All right. So next up, we have presentation 6B, which is Basalt Community Water Update. Town of Basalt and Mid-Valley Metro District. We have Justin up here and Bill Reynolds. So welcome.
Thanks for having me. Well, you're gonna do the introduction, right?
Yeah, I got a few talking points here. Well, good evening, Town Council and Mayor. I'm Justin Foreman, Public Works Director, and I have with me Bill Reynolds, the Executive Director of the Mid-Valley Metropolitan District. At Council's request, we're here to provide an update on the community's potable water delivery systems. In light of the record-breaking dry winter experienced across Colorado and here in our valley, we understand there's been a number of questions and concerns about water supply and reliability. As the town and Mid-Valley Metropolitan District operate Basalt's 2 potable water systems, we'll provide an overview of current conditions and the status of each respective water system. So before we get too far into current conditions, we'd like to first review each of the water systems' service territory and brief makeup for each system. For the town of Basalt, we serve the area within blue, highlighted on the screen, that includes Old Town, the Hill District, Bassburgs, the Wilds, South Side, Stotts Mill, the Elk Run neighborhood, Basalt Vista, a small portion of the Roaring Fork Club, and all 3 Basalt schools. In total, this equates to approximately 975 service connections. So from a water supply, treatment, and storage perspective, the town has several sources to keep up with daily demand, maintain system pressure, and provide emergency supply. Basalt's main water delivery method is from the microfiltration plant that you see at the top left of your screen, that can be served by both Basalt Springs or Luxinger Springs, originating up on Basalt Mountain. And you can see an example of one of the spring boxes there shown on the right. This plant can produce up to 500,000 gallons of water a day. It's running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Next, the town has 3 wells spread throughout the valley floor that add to potable water production and see the most use in the summer. Staff refer to these wells as well number 5, that can produce up to 500 gallons per minute, well 13 at 400 gallons per minute, well 11 at 250 gallons per minute, and this is a combined amount of 1.6 million gallons a day from those wells. The town also shares a well for irrigation purposes with the school district near the elementary middle school for the Arbany Park area. And it's also important to know that the majority of properties south of Highway 82 are on raw water irrigation. And from a storage tank perspective, just after treatment and prior to entering the water system at the plant, the pinion tanks hold up to 260,000 gallons. One of the tanks you can see there at the bottom of your screen. And within the distribution system itself, there are 2 1 million gallon tanks located on the north and south sides of the water system. And finally, there's 1 10,000 gallon tank for the upper pressure zone near the Bassburg townhomes. So all these components work together to ensure the town's water system can meet demand all throughout the year while maintaining pressure and system resiliency. And so now I want to pass this over to Bill to speak about Mid-Valley's water system.
Quick just clarification, for Luxinger in the winter, we use it, but in the summer at CPW is using that, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
The bulk majority of that is allocated for CPW.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So to give you an idea about, and by the way, my name is Bill Reynolds. I've been the executive director for Mid-Valley Metro for about the last 20 years. We serve about 6,000 residents. The best way to describe our boundaries are from the Emma Bridge through Cerise Ranch. So we serve a good portion of half the town of Basalt, unincorporated Eagle County, and part of unincorporated Garfield County. So pretty much from Aspen Junction through Cerise Ranch, that's all ours. We do both water and wastewater. We have a 1 million gallon a day plant over by the Blue Lake, just beyond the Blue Lake. It has nothing to do with Blue Lake, by the way. That's a 1 million gallon a day plant. We serve about 1,800 water connections and about 2,300 sewer connections. The reason for the difference is because, like in Sopers Village, we provide them sewer service, not water. They have their own water service. Same thing holds true with the Crawford properties. So we're served by 6 production wells throughout the valley floor. 3 of them are over in Blue Lake. They give us about 680 gallons a day or per minute. Wells 3 and 4 by the Basalt Industrial Park. That gives us another 360, and then we have a well right next to the county building that provides us about 415 gallons a minute. Combined, we're about 1,455 gallons of uplift per minute. So we can fill tanks pretty quick. We can support the fire department very well. We have conditional rights for another 6 wells, one of which is under development right now. Well, when I say development, it's being engineered right now, and we'll figure out where that's going to go and get more. Storage, we have a couple 750,000 gallon tanks above Blue Lake, a 500,000 gallon tank above Original Road, and a 60,000 gallon tank. It's its own pressure zone above Hillcrest Drive. Along with that, we're served by 2 ditches, the Robinson and the Harris Reed ditches. That provides raw water irrigation to about 70% of my district. That helps us out a lot as far as domestic use. Approximately 70% of Mid-Valley Metro, like I said, have their own raw water irrigation. One of the unique things about Mid-Valley is that a lot of those raw water rights are owned by the individual HOAs, so they operate the systems. Let's see, Sopers Meadows and Willardstown downtown core, we operate the irrigation system for that. So pretty much from Alpine Bank through the medical buildings, all of that area is operated by us as far as irrigation. We have 2 75 horsepower pumps that pump 24/7, provide 120 PSI to every home there. So it works out pretty well.
All right. Now we get into what current conditions are looking like heading into the summer's irrigation season. There are numerous factors that water providers in the West typically consider and review when trying to understand water supply outlook. I do not think it's any shock to council that Colorado or Basalt is not in a great position coming out of winter. Up on the screen, you'll see some of the tools used, such as the snow water equivalent, or SWE, that measures the amount of water in the snowpack that's setting the lowest recorded benchmarks. At the top of the screen, you'll see Picken and Eagle counties in exceptional drought category from the Colorado Drought Monitor. And finally, the seasonal outlook from the National Weather Service in Grand Junction still predicts above average temperatures and average precipitation for the summer months. But I did want to point out a bit of good news. You'll see the 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook in the middle of the screen there in green, and it is showing above average for precipitation currently. So we'll take whatever we can get. So with all these conditions in mind, our goal tonight is to communicate where each water system stands in education efforts to the community as we move into the peak water demand season. So for Basalt's water system, we are currently in stage 1 water restrictions from April to October. This is something that the town does every year for irrigation season, but we believe now more than ever to use only what you need of this finite resource. Stage 1 gives us the ability to apply fines for violations of varying degrees, but our main goal is really to educate the public more than ever and reinforce voluntary compliance. To that end, we'll be ramping up outreach efforts through social media, newspaper, water bill inserts, touch points at special events, and communications to HOAs and landscaping companies. We believe you can have a healthy and beautiful landscape and follow the outdoor watering schedule presented. And from a water supply perspective, town staff are closely monitoring the amount of water being supplied by the springs and the wells as seasonal demand increases. In our current position, we are steady but cautious in meeting the town's water demands. We have not seen significant changes in water supply at this point. If for some reason we have the treatment plant or a well go offline for an extended period of time, or we cannot keep up with summer demands and emergency storage, the town has the ability to go into stage 2 water restrictions that prohibits all outdoor use. To our knowledge, the town has only gone into this twice, and the most recent was during the Lake Christine fire, where we lost the treatment plant and a well at the same time. So with that, I'll turn that over to Bill to discuss Mid-Valley system status.
So a couple of things that we've done, being that we are responsible for a couple of the ditches, we had the opportunity early on to turn these ditches on. If there was one benefit to a dry winter, it was that we were able to get into the ditches and clean them out earlier. So that's allowed us to kind of refill the groundwater table, and that's really helped. Put it plainly, ditches leak, and it really helps to regenerate that aquifer below us. So that's helped. Along with that, we've started meeting with HOAs, talking about trying different ways that we can reduce usage as much as possible, but at the same time, we don't want to create a bigger problem, and that is dry out the valley. So we're watching it very closely. We're doing the same thing with our wells. We monitor them weekly. We test them to make sure, see what kind of recovery time they have on them. So far, they've been doing very well. So we are blessed with being below the confluence of 2 rivers. So that helps. And we're watching it very closely. There's going to be a lot of moving parts throughout the summer season, and we're trying to keep up with it. Questions?
Well, yeah, well, we can, we'll let you make it, ask it.
I want to know the restrictions, is it how long in the water?
Yeah, so what we like to tell folks is follow the guidelines that the landscaping standards have put together. You know, we don't want you to overwater. We think there's a sweet spot there in late evenings and early mornings where you can still water, you know, depending on what you need to water, that's more effective than having it run all day. That's helpful. And we're happy to provide some literature from, you know, the landscaping community to help you with some of that.
So I was going to ask a similar question along those lines. I think it would be helpful to have, you know, by month, because I typically, I don't even water in April, this is my opinion. April and October, I don't think you really need to water, maybe trees. But having some guidance on type of sprinkler head, how long to water with it, so like a rotary versus a spray, during which months, typical months, and even, I would say even in normal conditions and stage 1 conditions. Like, so in other words, I think people need, like, to that question, people need that guidance on, like, how long should I water for? Because you don't crank it, because that's what's going to have us run into troubles if people are overwatering and they really don't even need to maintain their lawn, based on the time of year and the sprinkler head, et cetera. And then the time of day with evaporation, and, you know, like, so typically, I think from 10 o'clock until the evening, it's kind of a waste is what I've always heard. But that guidance and getting that education out there. So we should use frankly, probably as little water as we can outside. Like I'm not going to do a vegetable garden this year, just because I don't think it's sustainable. But that's just my preference. But I think people need guidance.
Mute yourself, Angel.
Come on. A list of best practices.
Yeah, just to help.
This is easy to
Yep,
consume.
we can work on that.
Yeah, and we wouldn't, like, just to be clear, I think the only one of those that would be one to enforce and like put it in, it would be around the time of day. I think everything else, it's like, look, here's the best practices, but I really think we should not be watering after 10 a.m. or whatever you guys think, but I know you have
Yep.
a point of view on that.
Yep. Now we'll work on packaging some of that out and rolling it out as much as we can.
And I think, especially on the Mid-Valley side, it's kind of a struggle for the town is one of the big users of raw water over in Mid-Valley. But the reason for that is because they maintain all the parks and right-of-ways. Along with that, there's only so many areas that you can water at any given time before you start losing pressure or volume. And so I think that you've kind of struggled over the years trying to use as much of the clock as you possibly can. So and you're absolutely right, 10 to 5 in the afternoon, don't water, it's not worth it. But at the same time, in fact, I personally water from 2 to 5:30 in the morning, if that. And I try to do it very, very sparingly, no more than 5-6 minutes per zone. And it seems to work for me. So, in fact, this summer, I'm gonna try to cut it back even further and try to get it wet, let it soak in, let it do its thing during the daytime, and go from there.
Yeah. Thank you. Other questions or comments do you all have?
I think it's obviously important to get the word out. Snowmass, for example, is midnight to 8 a.m., 3 times a week, odd even, 15 minutes per zone. It's very defined. And, of course, they're drawn out of Snowmass Creek and Owl Creek. And they don't have the advantage of a water table that we do down here in the valley floor. So it's different. I'm glad to hear that you're paying attention to the recovery on these wells, because that's one of the bigger problems, we're going to see up high. And the spring boxes are holding good. That's good. The question I have is just a quick update on the meter program we've been talking about for a while.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, for us, I think, Mid-Valley, you have advanced, metering you've rolled out already?
Yes.
So, yeah, the plan is for us to, get that RFP out the door, this year. And I would not suspect that that will get done in 1 year. It's probably a 2-year project, especially with the winter months that we have, because we can't replace meters all year long.
And it's getting very expensive.
Yeah. So it should be, we'll have the RFP out this summer and move from there.
Do you know how many pits there are versus like in-house meters?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
But we're, through development, meter pits are getting less and less common, and we don't allow them anymore. So,
I just wondered if people that had interior, inside meters, they could swap them out pretty easy anytime.
it,
I think Paul had estimated, when we looked at it, there was like 75 to 100
Indoors?
meter pits.
yeah,
Yeah, so there's 900 that are inside somewhere.
10%, give or take. Yeah.
Okay. No, we're also, I don't know if you have the benefit of senior rights down there, or some of them are junior or what on the
Well,
ditches, but-
both the Robinson and Harris Reed do have some senior rights. Do we expect, there is a possibility for further calls as the summer progresses. But it's one of those things we're just gonna have to wait and see. But there are some senior rights on both ditches. It's a catch-22 for us, actually, at this point. So, the good news is that when you really take a look at the window that we're faced with, you're really talking about June, July, and half of August. Then come August 15th, it starts to drop. As soon as kids go back to school, water drops off like crazy, or water usage drops off. And then come September, you don't see, you see people turning off their irrigation systems. That's been the historical nature of irrigation on the other side. I can't speak for over here. So that's what we've been faced with. And we peak at about 1.2 million gallons per day, right around the 4th of July. And then from there, it starts to work its way down.
Pretty similar for town of Basalt. You know, without irrigation, let's call it 200 to 300,000 gallons a day, peak irrigation. We're hitting that 1.1. But again, it's not all summer long. It's
No. And we have the capability of pumping 2 million gallons a day.
On the schedule, and this is such a semantic, but you have like a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday schedule. A lot of the irrigation clocks are running from, let's say, 10 at night into that Wednesday. That's still fine, right? Like
Yeah.
you're not, it's not that, you know, I don't know how we're gonna be monitoring it, and I have to deal with that for certain people, so.
Yeah.
Just making sure that, and by the way, I appreciate Mid-Valley. I've had calls from you guys of, hey, you know, we think there might be a leak here, which is awesome to see that technology and to have you guys come out and look, and it's
Some people think we're looking over their shoulder, but.
no, it's all, I love it. As a
Thanks.
property manager, I think it's awesome. And also, I've gotten a call from Rick. He manages an HOA that I work in, and he told me there was a leak, and I actually found it because his call. So I think that is an amazing thing that we're doing, and I think the town of Basalt's gonna get there with our changing of meters, but it's a really good thing you guys are doing, and it's not a big brother thing for anyone that's worried about it. It's good. We need to, this
Gotta
is,
manage it.
you know, this is the next gold, and so I appreciate you guys making this presentation. It's
Well,
very
well-
informative.
Over the last 10, 15 years, we've really worked very hard. Every water system leaks. That's a given. But we've really worked very hard to understand where our water goes. And we've decreased our water loss dramatically over the years. There was a time, way back when, that there was like a 40% water loss going on. And there were water restrictions, and we tried different things, and we went into different stages of restriction, and it was a struggle. But since that time, we're between 10 and 15% during the summer months, which is terrific in the industry. That's where we want to be, and we're constantly looking. So, and by the way, just a leaking toilet in a home can run about 28,000 gallons a month. So something as simple as that, a simple leaking toilet. And we try to let people know, and we're in the process of putting in a super tier that if you exceed this amount in a given month, just like the town of Basalt presently has, that'll be a big help for us also. And for those heavy users, I got a feeling that some of those heavy users might go ahead and use the water anyway. Thank you for your contribution to Mid-Valley Metropolitan District. But here nor there, we're going to continue to educate the best we can and see what we can get out of them.
Our super tier at one location is $45 per thousand.
That's
That's a pretty
that's way up there.
bite, but you know,
Yeah.
we still have people that end up in that.
Yeah, and I want to make something
Okay.
pretty clear. When you're dealing with communities that are headwaters, headwater communities, they're in a different world than I am. I have two beautiful rivers that serve pretty much the valley. The headwaters, their supply is limited, so they have to be more and more restrictive on their supply. And I certainly do appreciate that. And I think Rick's Up Valley has done an excellent job of putting some technology in place to put the kibosh on super users. So,
Yeah, and the stream flows and things like that, I don't know, we'll see, but I know they just did a big release out of the frying pan, and it was really a significant one, you know, from what we've been seeing a couple weeks ago. And then up valley, all this is being driven by Maroon and Castle as the headwaters for City of Aspen.
Hmm.
And, you know, they're talking stage 3 by June 1st, you know, if things don't improve, so. We
Well,
are fortunate we have the valley floor and not the,
let's see, Snowmass got 14 inches of snow in the last 2 days. That helps. We continue to get rain. Every rainfall helps. So, it's gonna be a long summer for the water business, but, you know, you never know. We can't lose sight of the fact that we live in the high desert. Sometimes we forget that. So, we've been here before. We're gonna get through it. We'll manage it.
Any other questions or comments?
I'll just real quick echo what Mayor Knight said. And since you pointed out, we're really walking a fine line between conserving water and drying out the landscape. I just think in your educational materials, the more specific you can be with your guidelines, the better. You know, I think it would also really give people peace of mind to know that they're doing it correctly, right?
Yep.
And thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. All right. Next up, we have council actions, and the first one is a thank you and council member comments for our outgoing council members. It's bittersweet. I have this one, so I just wanted to start off making some comments and allow others. Let's start with Dieter. It's like I said, it's bittersweet to see you go. You've been an excellent counselor. Mike, so you actually hear. You've been an excellent counselor, and as far as just your ability to listen, analyze, and then interject with just the right comment with the perfect timing of a dry, deadpan sense of humor too. It's been awesome. You're good at it. You've been very good at that. And it's just kind of like bringing levity, but also bringing your business acumen and just like kind of your knowledge about our community to bear and your perspective. So I will miss you on council. I was bummed. Honestly, I was bummed you didn't run again, but I understand, and I hope you'll keep in touch with us. And just wanted to thank you. And I have a plaque that staff got you, so I wanted to give this to you, and then let others make comments for Dieter.
Well, thanks for the kind words, Mayor. I appreciate it.
In this wall in your office. So.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You have any words?
I do, actually. I want to say thanks. I want to say thank you to the council, to the mayors, past and present. You know, sitting across from Glenn, next to Elise for a while when we first started, and you on not in that seat.
Yeah.
So I want to say thanks to this group, past and present, for just kind of, you know, allowing Basalt to kind of get where it is. You know, it's a ship that needs stewarding, and I think since I've been here, I've learned so much. I really appreciate it. I learned from, you know, I'm a listener, and you learn a lot when you listen with the intent to hear. And I'm really, really thankful for that opportunity. I'm thankful to the staff. It's unbelievable. You know, just the passion, the professionalism, you know, their can do. Let's think about it. Let's get it done. And the modifications of just the plans you have to do on a daily basis is amazing. It's, you know, the police, public works, everybody. It's truly, you know, the heartbeat, I think, of the town. And then I want to thank the people. You know, the people of Basalt. You know, I get to be one of them in T-minus 2-3 minutes probably, which is pretty cool. But I would say what I've learned from this seat here is you know, if it's Holy Cross, if it's committees, if it's the school board, if it's however you can try to please get involved in some way, whatever you can afford to do, the library, what it is. It's really special, I think, and one of the things that makes the community special is people answering the bell. The fact that there was 4, options for this election. It's just great when citizens of a community come together and try to make that community better. And I think that in the long run is what benefits the town, because then you get the chance to get to the great staff. So I want to say it's been an honor to serve the people of Basalt. I appreciate you, and I'll see you on the other side. Now you can come and talk to me in the grocery store. I'll hang out in the cereal aisle. So we can talk about Midland Avenue and whatever else it is that you want to talk to.
You've been avoiding the cereal aisle ever since.
I go there with a hoodie on.
Yes, I've seen it many times.
Yeah, and so I do appreciate the experience and a shout out to the tenured old man over there that's been kind of at it for a while. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything for Dieter? All right.
It feels good to do what you do.
Yeah.
I mean, you go home at night after one of these meetings and you feel like you accomplished something sometimes. But most of the time you do. That's what is the brilliant part of this position is you go home, you're a citizen, you come here, you sit for a few hours and you get to make decisions that impact the whole town. But appreciating that you're gonna go home and be with your family and do other things is really the culture that we're trying to build in this community is service and finding the time to squeeze in a little extra effort and motivate people to do the right thing. And I think you've done that very well.
Thank
Dear, I'm going to miss you so much. You're so kind and so thoughtful, and I've learned a lot about being a good listener from you. Just like David said, you're quiet, but you're listening and you're processing all of it, and you do. You speak. You don't speak extraneously. Like, you use your words carefully, and I've always appreciated that about you. And I really look forward to seeing you in the cereal aisle, because I feel like you're the person I see the most at the grocery store. But it's just been so nice to work with you. Thank you.
Thanks for the kind words. It's very nice.
I'm honored to serve with you. It's been a pleasure.
Back at you.
I know we have one more departing council member and one more plaque. So Ryan was the reason I wasn't even really aware of town council until I talked to Ryan. And what was that, like 2000?
8 years ago.
Yeah.
That's right after I ran.
Yeah, that was 18. Yeah, so it was like,
Our sons are best friends, so it's
Yeah.
a very.
they went to preschool together. It's just like it's been serendipitous. That our kids are friends and we've become great friends, and you've exposed me to this, and I will be forever grateful for that. But not only that, for me, like your passion for Basalt and just how fired up you get, the fire. Like one thing that's been great about this council, and we're going to continue, I think, is having these different characters, and you've brought that always thinking staff, caring so much about the community, having a pulse on what's happening in the community, that gut level has been, and then the comments and your insights that you bring based on that have been very valuable, and been an awesome mayor pro tem last couple of years too. So I appreciate all you've done, and like Dieter, you couldn't run again, but I'm happy and excited about the future, but I'm also gonna miss both you guys, because it's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate what you both have done. And we have a plaque for you. And this is an 8-year plaque. This is a pretty cool.
Special one.
Yeah, so.
Special one. Just wait till I run again. You have to make it 12.
You just get another one, and
I'll take it. First, I want to know if my pool pass is good this year. I hope it is, because I am in this year. Man, I'm a crier, so I'm sorry. But I am so honored to serve this town, this staff. Okay. We've come so far in 8 years. Doug's predecessor, Christie, and Doug have put the finances in this town in such an amazing place that if you haven't sat up here, you have no clue. It's amazing. And Pam, the stalwart, she's been here forever. James, you guys hold this town together like no one knows. I hate crime. Chief Monk, we're so honored for you, for what you've done in the last year and what you're doing now. Just the whole staff. We are so lucky to have this crew of people that care so much. And everyone I've served with, it's been it's awesome. And I just want to encourage anyone in the town, everyone on council, that Basalt is about to go through a huge change, and no is an okay answer. We are not up here to say yes. We are up here to listen and do what's best for the town. And there needs to be more no's. And it's not everything's teed up just to build. We are paving over Paradise, and I tried to stop some of it, and it is what it is. But no is an okay answer. You don't have to say yes to everything. Please listen. Please look around. Please realize what we have not online, what's already in the pipeline. Staff does a great job presenting that, but there is so much going on in this valley, and Aspen is just trying to stomp on our neck, and we need to protect ourselves. We need to protect this valley. It's been an honor, and I'm just grateful to be here. So thank you to everyone. And thank you to my family. So they put up with me for 8 years, and it's been awesome. So thank you. And we're so grateful to have Gloria. She is taking this town to a next level, and I'm super happy for it. For the continuing council member and the new council members and the coming back council member that I don't see here. We're in good hands, but please just look around, listen. Don't be afraid to say no, because no is an okay answer. So, thank you guys.
Thank you.
I want to say to you, Ryan, that as a council person, I appreciate how you are so authentically yourself. I appreciate that you care more about being honest than being right, that you will say what's on your mind. And I have learned a lot from you about being vocal and not being worried about the consequences of that, or about saying everything correctly or being 100% right all the time. You've taught me that, like, it's better to speak up, and I appreciate that.
I have been 100% right, by the way.
Of course you have. And as a parent, I just wanted to acknowledge you and say that I have seen you sit here so many nights and be needed. And I have watched you give everything to this council and this town and this job when you also have somebody who needs you so much. And everybody in this town is so fortunate that you chose to do both at the same time. And I wanted to say thank you so much, and just that I've seen that from you for the last 4 years that I've sat here, and that you're an awesome council person and you're an awesome dad.
Yeah, floor is open.
My son Tyler always looks at a guy like Ryan and says, boy, he's got big shoulders. You know, when he was little, he would walk around and, oh, there's big shoulders Tony, and there's big shoulders this guy, and big shoulders Ryan. And he does have big shoulders, and he carries a lot of people around on those shoulders. And he doesn't complain, he doesn't broadcast the fact that he is doing it. He does the job every day. He's approachable. For the last couple of years since I've been on here, he's been the go-to guy for me to call in and check my understanding of what we're doing these days and what direction he'd like to see the community go in. He's become a real special advisor to me as far as getting reintroduced to a system that's changed quite a bit over the last 30 years. And in my experience, for a long time, there's 3 or 4 maybe elected officials I've been around, and I'm including Pitkin, Eagle, the region, and that stand out in my memory as being special, and Ryan's right in that bunch. So really appreciate it. You'll still get a call at 7 o'clock at night.
I'm here.
And you'll answer the phone, and you'll talk longer than I want to talk, which is really unusual for most people. And, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming back.
I just wanted to say thank you so much. You are an underrated quality about Ryan Sack is he's also really funny, and sometimes this can all seem quite serious. And I think being able to bring that levity has just made this such a more pleasant experience. And I really respect that you stick with your guns, and you also respect when people disagree. Like, something I think this community and frankly this country needs is more respect when people aren't like perfectly aligned on every single issue, and you model that in a really impressive way that should be celebrated. So thank you. And because I didn't get to chime in on Dieter as well, Dieter, thank you so much. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever got was from Auden, who always told me to say it in less words. And I think you really model that. Like, it's clear that you're listening and you don't need to pontificate about something. Like, you are straightforward and you say things just exactly what needs to be said. And I think that's something that's much appreciated.
Thank you. Well, if no one has anything else, I will ask you each, what are you going to do with your free time?
What am I gonna do with my free time, like, immediately? I was gonna go have a margarita is what I was gonna do.
All right.
But I'm hoping to get involved with the high school boys football program. That's what I'm
Nice.
hoping to do.
Yeah.
I wanna get, maybe work with some of the younger kids as they come up, try to be a positive influence there.
That's awesome. It'll be fun. And what about you, sir?
I have my hat in the name for the Holy Cross Board. So anyone out there that's a Holy Cross member, if you've appreciated my service on council, I will give you the same amount of service on the Holy Cross Board. And just once again, to our staff, you guys work so hard. Jeff, and I didn't name everyone in the crowd, but I'm just so honored to be here. Grateful. So, and I think the town's in awesome hands. So, I look forward. You're gonna see my name up there on call-ins, and yeah, I'm not going away. I'm just taking a break because I have to. So it's been awesome. It's been a long 8 years, but good.
Thank you both.
See ya.
We'll see you on the streets.
Yeah, you sure.
Call me. I would love it. I would be honored if you did. See you around town.
I did.
Oh, you did, thank you.
I did. All right.
Yeah. I'll probably be up at the house, but I'm coming with you.
All right. This is how we do it. We'll see you around.
Can't wait to watch one of your games.
All right.
Let's do it, please. I'll probably save it so I can get a check.
I think an 8-year guy gets a full-time.
That's what I was hoping for. That was the only thing I wanted.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, next up on our agenda, we have our welcome and oath of office for new council members. So I know that's Greg. I think that might be you two to get another oath, like the Pam will say. And then Elise Hoddle, for those of you, she was elected, but she's going to be doing her oath at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll review.
You should have proclaimed him the real Mr. Basalt of the UVB.
Yeah,
You gotta bring some margaritas in here.
Right?
Yeah, I'll put it over. Okay. Good luck, everyone. Congrats.
All right. Pam, do you need me anywhere different than where I am right now?
No, I think we just stand here by this one. We'll maybe start with Angela.
Yes.
How with that? We'll stand up here and you can take the office. Raise your right hand, please.
I, Angela Anderson,
Do affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
do affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
and the laws of the State of Colorado and of the town of Basalt,
and the laws of the State of Colorado and the laws of Basalt,
and will faithfully perform the duties
and will faithfully perform the duties
of the office of Basalt Town Councilor,
of the office of Basalt Town Councilor,
upon which I am about to enter,
upon which I am about to enter,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Pam.
Mr. Shafford. I, Greg Shafford,
I, Greg Shaffron,
do swear that I will support
do swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
and the laws of the State of Colorado
and the laws of the State of Colorado
and of the town of Basalt,
and of the town of Basalt,
and will faithfully perform the duties
and will faithfully perform the duties
of the office of Basalt Town Councilor,
of the office of Basalt Town Councilor,
upon which I am about to enter,
upon which I'm about to enter,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Welcome aboard.
All right. Thanks, Al.
And here's your certificate.
All right. Thank you.
Greg,
Come on up. You're
next to the mayor.
Thank you.
all right. Well, now we have mostly seated our new town council. We'll finish, like I said, on May 12th with Elise Hoddle. She's out of town this week. Next up, we'll move to council action. So our first item is item 7A, is a continued public hearing of 555 Basalt Avenue development application for special review, PUD amendments, and associated development review actions for 54 commercial storage units and 47 residential units. And James, you're up on this one.
Yes, thank you. Let me please share my screen. Second. Thank you. We have the applicants here this evening as part of this continued public hearing. We have Marika Blodgett representing the applicant group and Justin Fries. This is a continued public hearing on an application that was submitted by MREH LLC for special review, PUD amendments, site plan review, Southside floodplain, and associated land use actions to construct 54 commercial storage spaces and 47 residential units at 555 Basalt Avenue, which is the Myerson Company property in Southside. The process includes land use requests requiring review by the Basalt Affordable Community Housing Commission, the P&Z, and the Town Council, with public hearings at both the Planning and Zoning Commission and Town Council levels. It also requires a subsequent subdivision review by Town Council, ultimately for condominiumization. Staff has also identified that the requested development would be requiring approval of a master plan amendment to amend the future land use map, as well as an amendment to the master plan to change the typology designations for the property to permit the residential and commercial storage to be separated on the property. As a bit of refresher, the site is 4.8 acres. It's located in Southside, adjacent to Fiu Lane and Cody Lane. It is located in the Basalt Business Center South PUD. It's zoned industrial PUD and within the town's urban growth boundary, and is partially in the Southside floodplain. The proposal, as was identified at the prior meeting, includes 54 commercial storage spaces on the southern extent of the property adjacent to Fiu Lane. And then there are 3 residential buildings proposing 47 residential units, of which 11 are proposed to be deed restricted for sale category units with price caps, and an additional 11 are proposed to be primary resident units. At the last meeting at the end of March, staff and the applicant presented the application as well as discussion items, and council considered public comments and provided initial feedback before continuing the public hearing. At this meeting, staff would suggest council hear some comments from staff and the applicants on changes that they've made to the application since the last meeting. Then we would recommend you hear comments from the applicant's traffic engineer, and then also hear a presentation from the town's third-party consultant on traffic, Jim Charlier of Charlier and Associates, who is here this evening. And he will provide a presentation on analysis on Fiu Lane alternatives to improve Fiu Lane, which has been a significant topic of discussion. And then ultimately take public comments and have council discussion. This evening, staff would suggest limiting your focus on items of affordable housing community benefit levels, the traffic, and then the Fiu Lane alternatives for this meeting, given that we have certain time constraints. But just briefly to begin, the applicants have made some adjustments to their application since the last meeting. Specifically, they provided a letter adding that 11 primary resident units would be included in the project. So now there are 11 for sale deed restricted category units, which equals 23% of the total residential units. And then they've added the 11 primary resident units, so that the total of deed restricted units in the project would be 47% of the units. The council had provided concerns at the last meeting about the level of community housing and community benefit in the project. So the applicants have proposed to add the primary resident units to get closer to the percentages that are in other projects approved by the town, including the BCC and Jadwin projects. The applicants also amended the traffic report, and their proposal to make 30 of the 54 storage spaces straight-up storage, and to designate 24 of the 54 storage spaces as storage units that could be used by industrial businesses as kind of a secondary place of business. They, in conjunction with that, revised their traffic study accordingly. It still concludes that the traffic generated by the development would be not greater than the existing Myers and Company traffic. And so the applicant's traffic engineer is here this evening and will discuss that as part of the applicant comments. So I wanted to be brief to give more opportunity tonight for the applicants and Jim Charlier to provide discussion. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to the applicants for comments. Let me please bring up the applicant's presentation. Okay. Once again, we have Justin Fries and Marika Blodgett.
All right. Good evening, Council. Thank you, and thank you for visiting the site this evening to kind of orient yourself a little bit more with the existing conditions on the site. Similarly to James, I'm going to try and keep it brief because we've got two traffic consultants and want to get to their comments and then answer your questions. As a kind of a catch-up to what James had said and the new council members, so this is a 4.84 acre site existing as an industrial steel yard right now. The proposal is for 47 new for sale units, 11 deed restricted, 11 would be 11 additional primary residential units that we've added since we were previously in front of the council. And then 54 garage condo warehouse type units. The site plan that we've kind of evolved to and are presenting right now is based in a bunch of factors, looking at the Basalt comprehensive plan, but also looking at existing uses in the Southside Business Center, looking at existing traffic patterns and future traffic patterns. The type of storage units we're looking at and proposing are really based on market feedback and market perspective. They are a unique type of unit that doesn't exist. I think the closest units are probably in Glenwood Springs right now for comparison, and then another development in Gypsum and in Rifle. And more designed for storing large recreation vehicles and also can be used for small businesses within reason. The site plan was reviewed by the Basalt Business Center South HOA and unanimously approved. And so I will jump to the next slide. So the site plan was evolved to place the multifamily residential closer to the Rafta Park and Ride lot, hoping to create some more usage from those users. And then the lower use, kind of lower intensity garage condo warehouse spaces were placed on the south side of the site, and the buildings were oriented to try and maximize solar gain for snow melt and site orientation. So since we previously were in front of council, we evolved the plan to add the 11 primary residential units as additional deed restricted housing. As James mentioned, that brings the total up to 22 out of 47 units, which is 47%. I think as a factor in the development, when we initially looked at offsetting the housing mitigation, it was very much a minimal number of units. So we feel this is a significant upgrade and contribution to the affordable housing stock in the town. So this is the site plan with updates based on our discussion last week with Charlier and town planning and our traffic consultant. So the site, we had an initial traffic count that was done on a Tuesday in May. Planning and zoning asked that we get additional information, so we had another one done this recent February, which supported our traffic count numbers. And then in looking at the future uses, we had previously had multifamily low-rise as one use, and then mini warehouse self-storage as another use. In discussion with council previously, there was some question to business uses. And so what we did is we're proposing to split the units by deed restricting them, that the buildings in yellow, which equate to 24 units, would be deed restricted to allow those business uses, and they would be categorized as light industrial use, and their traffic trip generation was inserted into that calculation, while the remaining southern buildings would be storage use only. And that would happen through the HOA and the deed restriction on that. And they were provided with that lower trip generation in our summary. Then I will, I'm going to note just on the bottom, there was some question on previous facilities when we spoke last. We did some comparison studies, and the development in Eagle has 36 units. Currently, 4 of those are used by businesses, which is about 11%. I believe the industry average we quoted last time was about 20 to 30%. And then there was a similar project in Dove Valley in Centennial near South Denver. That was 64 units. 12 of those are currently used by businesses, which is 18.8%, kind of supporting that industry average. In comparison to this project, the 24 out of 54 units that we're showing as business use would be a 45% usage rate. So we feel that number is supported in the trip generation and that it wouldn't increase. And Curtis with Kimley Horn will speak more to that in a second. The last discussion topic, which has been a big one throughout the entire process, is Few Lane. I've included a slide here with the entry to Few Lane. Our proposed site plan would adjust the entry into the site and kind of clean up this 3-way entry street, shifting the intersection to align with what's considered Somerset Lane, and an aerial more for reference. I'll jump to the next slide. So this is a zoom in of that area. Again, some of the considerations that we've taken into account is preserving the existing landscape. The removal of the fence in that picture will create better visibility. A new soft path along the buildings. And one thing we've added from the previous material that we showed you is the path that was just on the south side of the building now wraps to the east side. And will provide an additional connection for the south side over to the Rafta parking lot and around to the underpass there. And then I'll jump to this last slide, and this is, we reviewed some of the possible design options for Few Lane. Excuse me. And in reviewing those with our traffic consultant and Charlier, and in talking with some of the neighbors, we feel most of the support is for converting Few Lane into a one-way traffic in. And then there's some discussion as far as what that circulation pattern looks like, but I've shown some graphical arrows there of how that circulation pattern can work with converting Few Lane to a one-way into the neighborhood. With that, I think I will have Curtis jump up here. Do you want that? Perfect.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Curtis Rowe. I'm with Kimley Horn and Associates. I have 32 years of experience doing traffic impact studies. I'm a professional engineer licensed in the state of Colorado. I'm also a professional traffic operations engineer. I'm also the traffic engineering professor at the Colorado School of Mines. So that all being said, I enjoy studying and discussing traffic. And so as we go, no questions too small. Feel free to ask away. We started this project several months ago, and then as Justin described and explained very well, at the Planning and Zoning meeting, it was requested that we obtain another count of the facility to see how much traffic the existing Myers and Company metal construction was generating. And so we did a second count. And so with those two counts, we have a good baseline level of traffic in and out of the existing facility. And so then taking the Basalt South Side traffic study, which Kimley Horn and I prepared, working directly for the town, we know that there is a limiting threshold for the amount of traffic that can be generated by Basalt South Side. And so that became kind of our high line, our high bar in terms of traffic and the amount of traffic that this project could generate. And so the development was kept in mind throughout the process, that we knew that we had to stay under the threshold of what the existing facility generates. It's an 80 to 90 person employer, generating traffic in and out, arrivals and departures for the, common work day, but then also for in and out throughout the day. So it's a heavy use. There's also truck traffic because there's deliveries in and out of that facility, and you all got to see that today at your site visit, I understand. So, and so now with this, we have 47 residential units and 54 storage units. In the last meeting at the town council, we heard the questions and the comments with regards to the storage. And so we've updated that traffic study now to say, okay, we'll make an assumption that 24 of the 54 units are going to be a higher generating use. And so because of that, we changed the calculation methodology to industrial, like Justin mentioned. And so with that, we have a higher trip making potential for those. And that's what you see in your packet, the results of that. We're showing, based upon that the redevelopment project generates 4 less trips in the morning peak hour and 1 less trip in the afternoon peak hour than what the existing facility does when you average the 2 count days from the existing. And then otherwise, I will be available to answer any questions that you have as we go through tonight. Yep, I guess that's it, right?
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
And so are there any council questions of the applicants and staff now before we bring Jim Charlier up to kind of talk about VU Lane alternatives?
Anyone have any questions?
Just one.
Sure.
Southside has, is there headroom left for the future land use on Southside that could occur? Or is this, I'm a little confused about the statement that was, they're staying under the.
So there is,
yeah. Right. So
Yeah.
is there a cushion or not?
Yeah, in 2017, the town did a full traffic study for all of Southside that was actually done by SGM at the time. And there were some additional trips that were remaining that the intersection at Basalt Avenue and Highway 82 could still operate under an acceptable level of service with those additional trips. And then, so in the 2020 Basalt Master Plan, when the future land use map was created, it was created with that assumption in mind that kind of, I guess, kind of peanut buttered the trips throughout the future land use parcels, and there are some of them on the west side of Southside Drive there that are vacant parcels that were the Basalt Design District parcels, and they've got a certain trip generation built into the future land use map and the future land uses that are associated with it. So the Myers property was shown as existing land use on the 2020 master plan. So basically they weren't given additional trips in that master plan. So they've come at it with the idea that they couldn't increase the trips over the current generation on the site.
So the remaining parcels are still able to be served before you hit that threshold?
Right, correct.
Good question, thank you. Any other questions, the applicant, for the traffic?
I had a question for you. My question is, I see that you have a calculation for multifamily low-rise housing close to transit. And I was wondering, does that vary? Like, is there a different calculation for a rural versus like a city? Or is it all kind of the same calculation?
There are different calculations for the type of residential. There's a lot of different types of residential, and all of those pretty much have equations, and then also, yes, where it's located. So like in this case, this is multifamily adjacent to transit, and so those are the equations that we use to calculate the trip generation. So this is the vehicle trip generation.
Got it.
So is there multifamily close to mass transit in a place like Basalt versus multifamily close to mass transit in a place like Golden? Is there a different set of numbers?
Yeah, Denver.
No, those numbers would be the same, same equations, so same numbers. It's about a 15 to 20% reduction in trips, so it's not a lot of change with transit or without, because we don't have a lot of transit users. But the affordable housing component, those residents, they do make more transit-related trips than the typical multifamily housing does.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Any other questions, including online from Angel or Hannah? Otherwise, I will turn it over back to James for
Yeah, if we could please have Jim Charlier come up to talk about Few Lane. And let me queue up.
So, good evening. My name is Jim Charlier, and my firm Charlier Associates is in Denver. I'm supposed to be retired, but I get phone calls from people like James, and I hate to say no. So, it's been a long relationship with the town of Basalt, going back over 30 years. So, it's cool to be here tonight. It's fun to be up in the valley in such beautiful weather this week. So what I was asked to do is to help address the question of Fial Lane and what the alternatives should be. James asked me to identify alternatives and then to offer a recommendation to you. Should the project be approved, what should be the transportation system to serve the project? And that's a multimodal question, obviously, and it's a network question. What we try to avoid in transportation planning, when we do it well, is we try to avoid looking at facilities and not at networks, because we need the network to function. And your south side network is fragmented, obviously. This is a large infill site in that network. And so rather than just look at Fial Lane, we're going to be looking at the context that it sits in. So next slide. So you know where the site is. Did you go over this afternoon? Did you do your site walk this afternoon? Okay, so you know this area far better than I do. But what I want to do is give you the assurance that I've looked at the context and covered the things that you would ask about, but if I miss something, please bring it up. So next slide. So I'm going to roll through some context, some things that I think are key to the context of the question. Next. For obviously the high school, you have a large high school that's basically at a cul-de-sac on a dead-end street. And so it generates heavy traffic. Click once more and once more. And so the primary route, south side, and you're all very familiar with this, I'm sure, south side to Basalt backs up, and then you start getting some sheet flow through the neighborhood to try to get around that. Next slide. There's also, very close to the site is a daycare facility. In a community like Basalt, where you have a lot of families and a lot of children, daycares are really important, and it's important that they be safe. So we need to keep that in mind, and that'll figure into some of the identification of alternatives. Next slide. Obviously, the RTD Park and Ride, a major regional investment, important investment for you. And we need that to work relative to our development patterns. So that's really important relative to this site. Next slide. There is a future roundabout, and that doesn't really change a lot of what we'll talk about tonight. Next slide. Obviously, it says gas station, there are actually pumps. There's not a building there. No, next slide. And then obviously the really fine bike corridors that you've been developing. I come up here often to ride the Rio Grande corridor, and this is how I get into Basalt when I do. Next slide. And then finally, pedestrian connectivity, which is really, really important in your master plan, and it's important in having your developments be sustainable and resilient. Click once. So you've been developing a fairly gridded network here on the south side in the residential part of the area. Click again. And people, we do want people to be able to walk to the park and ride, and click again. And so you have what's a fairly large piece of land that's an infill site that's sort of in the middle of all of that. And so I call it area of no connectivity. And so you'll see that coming up in the comments I have on alternatives. Next slide. This is the site plan. You're very familiar with it. My version of this is from a few weeks ago when the materials were provided to me. Since they were provided to me, that exit to Cody Lane is actually exiting on a little bit to the right of there and then curving to the, other than that, it's still the same site plan. Next slide. And one of my early comments on this was that with the barrier to circulation within the site, as you see the red, does that show up in red? Yes, it does. The red barrier there, there's no through site circulation. So you basically have the commercial component, the mini warehouse, hobby garage portion of the project coming in and out from East Fial Lane, and then the residential accessing and egressing through Cody Lane. Next slide. We'll click a couple more times and then we can move on. And then click once. So the traffic impacts are through these two entrances. Click again, and those end up both on Basalt Avenue via Fiao and Cody, and click one more time. So we have three intersections that are impacted that we want to think about, and those are all busy intersections today, especially during the school year. And next slide. And then finally, you have what I call a legacy street. It's like this used to be a commercial industrial area, and so there were lanes that weren't really planned the way we plan streets. Some of those have been sort of taken over and changed over the years, but this legacy roadway here is still sort of what it's been for a great many years. Nobody really designed it to be the way it is. It's just is evolved to be what it is. And that intersection will need to be tightened up. It's sort of a free-for-all right now, as I'm sure you're very well aware. Next slide. So the legacy roadway, a portion of it next to the gas pumps has had some money spent on it in recent years. Next slide. But this portion that continues on through the trees there, I'm sure you were out there today, so you know what that looks like. That is pretty much the way it's been for quite a few decades, I'm sure. So next slide. So in the analysis, I show you this section that's where the gas pumps are over to where the current entrance to Myers is. I'm calling section A, and then the section that goes through the trees, a narrow section, click again, is section B. And then the intersection itself would be the third component. Next slide. And then obviously the neighborhood character. you know, your exiting councilman mentioned paving over Paradise, and one of the things that we try to do in good planning is protect neighborhood character, and obviously that row of trees and that environment in through there is a part of the character of this area. And so I'm expecting there will be a fair amount of sensitivity to what might or might not happen to those mature trees. Next slide. And then, so we have about a 500-foot section of roadway that's just an old informal rural / industrial lane. Next slide. One of the things that we need to take into account, and I have met via Zoom with both fire and police, is emergency access, ingress and egress. Click again. And the closest fire, under International Fire Code, a street that is adequate for fire department use, we call a fire access road, and that has at least 20 feet clear, and it has access to water. So next slide. So there are 2 fire hydrants out there on Alexander, and then next slide. And those are, and click one more time. So we're basically, our problem here will not be so much that we don't have fire hydrants. There will be fire hydrants in the development. There are fire hydrants on Alexander. There are a couple of others nearby, so we can get the coverage we want. But the other criteria we use in planning for emergency access is that we need 2 points of access, especially in a project this size. When we have emergencies, one of those tends to get plugged somehow, and so we need more than one way in. And so that's another consideration in terms of emergency access. Next slide. And then there is a platted corridor, click again, that has been mentioned once already, Somerset, which part of it is the driveway to the daycare today, and part of it, I'm sure you know, has a bike lane on it, and part of it is fenced off much of the day. Today, the parents come in from the north, come through the loop and come back out. The children are dropped off and they walk across the driveway in to the right there to where the actual daycare facility is. Next slide. In looking at these alternatives, we'll be zeroing in on 3 parts of Fial Lane. Next slide. And so the current street network, you see in the green color, the site that's mapped onto this. These, by the way, are not design drawings. These are informal drawings that are conceptual, intended to show the choices that you have. So the section A is 2-way traffic. Section B is also 2-way traffic, even though it's quite narrow. And the daycare access is currently via a private lane, and there is no, Somerset Lane has not been developed through. Over here to the right on Allison is 2-way coming around the corner, and then obviously the streets down in your residential subdivision are all 2-way, 2-lane streets with on-street parking. Next slide. So the first alternative would be to do almost nothing. It would be sort of a minimal alternative. As was mentioned earlier, you would need to clean up that intersection there, turn it into less of kind of this sort of big asphalt area, and focus it down into an intersection just for safety reasons. So that would be sort of the minimum that's, I'm sure everybody is anticipating would be done. And so I'm calling that alternative 1. It could be sort of the no action alternative 2. But there would be some money would need to be spent there to organize that intersection. Section A would continue to be 2-way, of course, and Section B would continue to be 2-way, and you would not address the issue of the very narrow street, the very narrow lane. Next slide. Alternative 2, by the way, I should say, and if this is okay, Mayor, if you have a question that's like something's just really not clear, please interrupt me, but we can do discussion and question at the end maybe. But you have to kind of shout at me because I'm not watching. So alternative 2 would be are these colors? Yeah, they're showing up. So under alternative 2, where you see the gray, you would do some minimal improvements just to define the roadway a little more, probably deal with drainage between the entrance to the new project and the intersection of Fiao and Basalt Avenue. And you would redo the intersections, as I discussed a moment ago. The narrow lane part of Fiala Lane would continue to be two-way, and there would be no improvements there. So this is, again, a fairly minimal set of changes. Next, alternative 3. This would, under this alternative, you would take all of East Fiala Lane and turn it into a two-way facility with 2 lanes and modern design. So you would address drainage, you would address sidewalks and pedestrian circulation, and you would provide minimal lane widths for two-way traffic. Minimum for a low-speed street, 10 to 12 feet for each lane. This would require removal of that row of trees that you saw in the photograph earlier. It's a pretty significant impact to neighborhood character. It would open up emergency service access and ingress and egress capacity for the new project, and it would improve all of that for the neighborhood. It would have some improvements for pedestrian circulation and bike circulation just by virtue of the safer facility. Next slide. Alternative 4 is one that came from the community, from members of the community. And under this alternative, you would actually realize Somerset Lane. Now, those of you who go are out in that neighborhood or maybe live in that neighborhood know that Somerset Lane is there today, but this corridor that has been preserved on the map, on your right-of-way map, is actually offset from that Somerset Lane a little bit to the left. So it's not it's actually lined up with where the driveway into the daycare facility is. So that's where it's a narrow right-of-way. It's about 22 feet wide. So you'll have to. I'm not doing design for you, but in design you will have some challenges getting all of that to fit in there. But I believe it can be done. It could be done, especially if it were a one-way facility. Under this alternative, the daycare family drop-off would be northbound, using that little pull-out you see there at the school, but that would be a one-way street, a very low-volume street. I think there may be one more click here. Yes. So one of the things the fire department asked that we think about is ensuring, and again, I'm not doing design tonight, but ensuring that if you did go with an alternative like this, you would provide adequate turn radii and those curbs in there so that they could get their longer engines in from the south here in case they needed to do that. So I've showed that there just to say, yes, that needs to be addressed in final design. The East Fiala Lane, the narrow part would convert to one-way, and it would be one-way southeastbound, and that little section of Allison between there and Alexander would become one-way southbound. That would prevent school traffic, the afternoon traffic coming out of the school at peak times, from trying to use Fiala Lane, which I hear anecdotally occurs to some degree today. That would prevent that from occurring, but we would still need to address the issue of that traffic trying to find its way through the new Somerset connection past the school. And I think those are issues that can be addressed in design and can be addressed through enforcement over the time. So that's alternative 4. The pedestrian circulation, there would be pedestrian circulation along the Somerset Lane extension, and there would be pedestrian improvements on the improved parts of East Fiala Lane and bike accommodation as well. Next slide. Alternative 5 is a little more, is a little bigger step, and that would provide a new entrance to the proposed development at the very southeast corner there, a two-way entrance, and would provide traffic circulation straight through and out to Cody Lane. So you would be gridding out, you would be making this project a part of the grid. You're extending the grid through the project. That would be two-way traffic. Lots of questions there. You would have to move the gate to protect the mini warehouse portion of the project. You'd have to rotate that. And whether this is a public street or a private lane operated, used as a public street, would be questions you'd have to deal with if you did decide you wanted to do this alternative. Somerset Lane would remain unchanged. East Fiala Lane would become one-way southeastbound again. And you would probably with this alternative see some at least desire for use by that heavy traffic exiting the school in the afternoon to try to come through here and come right through this new site to get to Cody Lane. So there would be some issues with all of that with this alternative. And then one of the residents had spoken with James and suggested another idea, and that's, I'm showing as alternative 6. Oh yeah, and that would require signing. So we would need, so on this idea that a citizen brought forward was, could we just have a bike lane through that area where those trees are? That's most of the time just a bike lane, but when the fire department needed to get in there, they could use that lane as access. And so I wanted to reflect that a citizen had that comment. Next slide. But as you saw earlier, and this is a little hard to see on here, but there is a brown corridor there along the south side of the mini warehouses, and then it extends over to the right and up to get eventually to Cody Lane and then across into the parking right. So that has been a modification to the applicant's proposal. So to some degree, you could argue that that addresses the idea that I showed with alternative 6, with the exception that as it's currently proposed, it would not, it could function as fire access, but it would be mainly access to the rear of the buildings, not the sort of access where you're coming through at speed. Okay, next slide. So I did a quick project evaluation. This is very crude, but it's designed just to give a sense of how these stack up against each other. So green is a positive change. Red is something negative about what would happen with each alternative. Yellow is pretty much no change, or at least not much change. And the key factors that I'm suggesting would matter most to you in this context, obviously safety and emergency access. The capital cost, somebody has to pay for this. The town doesn't have a big public works budget. You're looking for ways to spend. Developers got some kind of a pro forma budget, so it's overly expensive ideas are probably negative to the potential for the project. Pedestrian connectivity should always be a criterion, especially in an infill site like this, and then given your master plan's aspirations for this being a walkable community. And then the tree canopy, which I think in terms of public perception and neighborhood perception is going to end up being an important issue. So these are the four criteria. Next slide. So alternative 1, you see the evaluation box down in the lower left there, is basically not much change except at the intersection. Some change, not much. A little bit of improvement in pedestrian connectivity, a little bit less dangerous, but not much improvement. Alternative 2, then, next slide. Oh, and I should say that, on my phone call, my Zoom with the fire department, they're not, I try not to go against a strong opinion on the part of fire departments because they deal with the day-to-day reality, and so they really feel alternative 1 is not worth further consideration. They wanted me to fatal flaw it out of the analysis. So next slide. And alternative 2, again, is not much change, a little bit of improvement, some safety improvement at the intersection, a little bit of improvement to the section of Fiala Lane and section A there. Otherwise, not much change. Alternative 3, next slide. Oh, and again, sorry, James. Again, the fire department really feels this doesn't measure up. I think their point of view on this is that what we do, if this project gets approved and whatever alternative you decide you want to do gets built, that's probably the last major work that'll happen out here for many, many, many years. So from the fire department's point of view, what happens here now becomes sort of the permanent situation. And the only opportunity, that very narrow 2-lane through there is an existing reality. The only opportunity the community has to change that and make it safer over time is when this parcel develops. So I don't think they're willing to let go of having some improvement in access through there as part of approving the project. So that's kind of their position. And then, so next slide, alternative 3. This, you know, becomes a two-way, just a regular suburban street, hopefully a little better than some suburban streets, but, you know, a low-speed street, reasonably tight and efficient design. Nothing happens at Somerset. You do, and nothing happens with that new entrance to the project. This takes out the row of trees. So the evaluation of impact shows high capital cost is red and loss of the tree canopy is red. Improvements to pedestrian connectivity would be great, and the improvements to safety emergency access would be great. Next slide. So alternative 4, again, which was the extension of Somerset Lane, realizing the mapped corridor of Somerset Lane, is shown as good for emergency safety and emergency service access. It's a little more, it's obviously quite a bit more expensive, not as expensive maybe as alternative 3, but still pretty expensive. And it preserves the tree canopy, and it would improve pedestrian connectivity significantly, especially for that neighborhood to the south. And then next slide, alternative 5. This is, again, the capital costs are high, the tree canopy is preserved, and pedestrian and safety emergency access are improved. And then next slide. And then alternative 6 really doesn't do much, and probably, you know, the way I think it was conceived as being a relatively wide lane that fire trucks could use would probably end up having pretty significant impacts with that tree canopy at the same time. So I've rated that a red for tree canopy, and it probably ends up being more expensive than some of the other alternatives we've looked at, so I've shown red for that. Next slide. This is, and then click one more time. This is a kind of a quick summary of those colors and those. So you're really looking at alternatives 3, 4, 5. And next slide. The ideal, you know, I'm a transportation planner, and I spent my whole career trying to improve connectivity, provide multimodal connectivity and networks through neighborhoods. And so I would like to see everything happen, but I realize that's probably not feasible. So the question comes, what's most critical? Having those pedestrian and bike connections up to the park and ride and through this corridor seem pretty critical to me. You need, it would be nice to be able to take East Fial Lane back to one-way circulation southeast bound so that it doesn't get the outflow from the school. And improving the safety of that school, the preschool access for the daycare there, those seem important to me. So one more slide. So if I had to make a recommendation at this stage, I would say something pretty close to alternative 4, using Somerset Lane, converting East Fial to one lane, getting that bike and pedestrian corridor in there, and doing the improvements to the Fial Lane in Section A would be a reasonable course of action. It is still definitely some capital cost associated with that. Next slide. And so, and then just one final note, when you get into design, there are a whole bunch of realities will come out on the table. You were in a floodplain here. Drainage is going to have to be thought through carefully, and there may be things that have to be solved in design with drainage. I did not do any survey work to determine where the right-of-ways and where the utilities are and where the actual right-of-way lines are and what issues there may be with adjacent property owners with respect to right-of-way. And then the community hasn't really had an opportunity to react to this yet, and I'm sure there will be strong opinions there. So those are all contingencies that I really haven't taken into account. And with that, last slide, I can answer questions or listen to commentary.
Well, thank you. That was a thorough and very informative presentation on that, so I appreciate that. What questions we have? I'd like to wait on commentary until after the public hearing.
Okay.
But what questions do we have for Jim at this point?
Thank you. What I'm coming away with is any potential redevelopment is going to require a reconstruction of the road system out there, and converting legacy roadways to a connectivity that's a system. And right now that doesn't exist, in a manner of speaking. So what you've told us is pretty interesting, because anything that changes on that site that would increase the availability of the fire department to get in there, the pedestrian movements, bicycles, daycare, that would all come with improvements, regardless if it's this project, the next project, the next project after that. It seems to me what you've done for us is lay out a vision for that area that would come with any growth that happens to get approved there.
And tell me what your question is.
The question is, does these alternates, if you were looking at a redevelopment of the area that had nothing to do with this piece of ground right now and what's being proposed, you would still recommend these changes?
Sure, sure. I mean, your last opportunity
Right.
to address the connectivity of that network in that area with that fairly large infill site is going to be when that site develops.
Right.
Because you don't have a big capital budget. You're not out there
Right.
widening streets and,
So
yeah.
my second question is for James, is the fees that were established for the south side improvements were would they apply to this infrastructure improvement, or would they not apply to this infrastructure improvement? So what I'm asking is, the networks of streets that were developed already, and the water tank and all the other stuff up there, this seems outside the boundaries of that fee structure.
Well, the improvements in the water tank requirements would be subject to this, because.
Right, expanding the utilities, the infrastructure,
Expanding
but
the
the road
utilities.
network.
The road network, they would be required to, contribute to the mini roundabout requirement fee that all of Southside has been required to pay into. They would be required to pay into the Southside Transportation Improvement Impact Fee, which has been required throughout Southside as well.
Would any of those fees you're speaking to be put back into this?
They could be.
They could be, okay.
Yeah, they could be. Also, some of those fees that we have in the hopper that we have in the current funds are also kind of earmarked to look at that mini roundabout improvement and laneage changes that could get rid of the split phase at the Basalt Avenue signal to improve the level of service too. So that's what some of those funds are going to go to as well. But they could potentially, some of those fees go to these improvements.
Thanks.
Could we get copies of those slides? Okay.
Yes.
Yep. And just one quick clarifying question. The roadway that would be on private property, but, questionably open to the public in our alternative 5, if we didn't redevelop, we wouldn't be able to really do that if they didn't redevelop the site, right? That goes right to their operation. I just wanted to make sure I'm interpreting that correctly. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Did you have anything else prepared before I do public hearing?
The applicant would like to ask a question.
What, come up to the mic, yeah.
I just have a question for Jim, just to get back to the traffic study.
Sure.
Since we've been working with you on this for now probably 4 months. And I just wanted to know to what extent you feel we've addressed all your concerns. Initially, you wanted us to do another traffic count, which we did. Last time you said, can we come up with a scenario if there was more industrial use?
Right.
We've presented that.
Right.
Did you have any other concerns with our traffic study at this point?
Good question, yeah. So for council's information, I also reviewed the traffic impact study that was done for this, and I did have comments and criticisms. My concerns were that the circulation plan shown in the traffic study should match what was shown in the development project. And so the initial traffic study said that there would be cross-site circulation, but the development plan, when I watched on YouTube, I guess. I watched your previous council meeting where you discussed this project, and I learned things about the project I didn't know. I learned that there would not be cross-site circulation. I learned that the mini warehouse were actually hobby garages or man garages, whatever you call those, and man caves, I guess, yeah, which was a different use, in my opinion. So yes, we did collaborate with the applicant and their traffic consultant. With respect to the mini warehouse portion of the project, if the project is conditioned, and then those conditions are enforced through whatever covenants they write when they subdivide and sell the property, that limiting the number of those units that can be used as principal, that it can be used as places of business, essentially. And the number of units that they shifted from mini warehouse to light industrial matches that number, then that solves that problem, in my opinion. Then now your traffic study matches your land use, proposed land use. On the issue of fire department and police, emergency service, and emergency evacuation have more than one way out always from the project. They have addressed that by proposing that the gate across that drive that you were referring to a moment ago, that gate would be interconnected with the fire alarm system and the fire alert system, emergency alert system, and it wouldn't be one of those old gates that goes like this. It would be like a drawbridge. It would go up, and that would be opening up access for people to make emergency exits or fire engines to get through, which addressed that that concern that, as you know, I had. So yes, at the conclusion of our last phone call, I felt they had addressed all of my criticisms of the traffic study and had resolved them, which is just to say that the traffic study now represents a reasonable estimate of what the traffic generation from the project would be.
Including the circulation piece. Including the circulation piece you mentioned initially. There was something like the circulation didn't, I'm going to butcher it, but the circulation didn't match what they were presenting.
Well,
versus.
Yeah, and you know, I don't own a big site of mini warehouses. I don't know what the security and market requirements are for that. I felt that it would be good to not have that protected by closed gates. I felt that it would be between lighting and motion detection and good well-built buildings, the concerns about theft could be mitigated. I'm informed that the market doesn't agree with that assessment, and so the idea of gating off the mini warehouses is still an important idea to the viability of the project. So my concerns were alleviated when I learned that in an emergency, there would be an emergency interconnect and those gates would rise and you would have free flowing. But you would not, as an ordinary matter, have traffic flowing through the site, using it as a way to get to Cody Lane.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Any other questions? Otherwise, I will go to public. Yeah, go ahead.
And it might be just.
Go ahead.
It might just be conducive for the discussion that's going to follow that we are in favor of the alternative 4 that's being proposed. I know we said in the remarks early on, but I think now it makes more sense now that you've seen it to know what we would support for what it's worth.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing at whatever time, 8:21. You're good sitting there, and if somebody else needs to, actually, no, you're fine to stay in there, and we'll use this microphone.
Good evening. It's me again. I just want to thank you. Hi, everybody. We are really grateful of your time, your due diligence done by the town and Meyer Steel in regards to the proposal. The safety concerns I've shared are not only tied to this proposal of new development, but the vast growth in Southside with only one funnel egress, as I've spoke about a lot. The traffic engineer's exploration and recommendation is paramount in addressing these safety concerns. And I want to thank you for enlisting their expertise It's warranted and much appreciated. And I want to thank Myers Steel also for their hard work, their patience, their flexibility in making the project the best and safest it can be. And I just wanted to share my humble vision, best practice in moving forward with the project while addressing the safety concerns I've shared. In order for me to continue providing safe, high-quality care while keeping the safety of our children, our neighbors, the high schoolers, the visitors, the bicyclists, pedestrians in mind, alternative 4 is clearly the best option. Thank you for consideration.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
I'm doing timing here. Who else would like to come up and speak? Any other public comments from the room? I do see a hand up online, so let's go to that. John's iPhone. Don't forget to give your name and address.
John, if you'd like to speak, please unmute and you can talk to council.
Yes, my name is John Fitzpatrick. I am the president of the Basalt Business Center East Homeowners Association, which is the commercial end of Cody Lane. My concern is we haven't really addressed a large impact that's going to be onto Cody Lane, adding all this traffic right onto it. That end of Cody Lane is short of what it should be. It has no sidewalks. It's very narrow. It's got ditches on both sides, and nothing's being addressed about improving Cody Lane if you're going to add all these vehicles onto it on a daily basis. A little history of this, that section of road that comes out there was Track A, and that was dedicated from the original developer to the town of Basalt. And somehow, when they added the park and ride, that got conveyed over to CDOT. And the whole idea of that was when Myers property was taken away to develop the park and ride, that was an exit for the trucks with a 5 vehicle per day allowance onto it. Now we're going to have a steady traffic of vehicles exiting the residential part of that onto looking for the right word, substantial roadway. I think if we're going to do this, we have to add sidewalks there, and we're going to have to at least widen it to that, to any kind of code what would normally be to a road, and that's not being addressed on this. You know, is this going to be wide enough for more snow removal? You know, it's just nothing on our end. What we're going to be impacted on is being really addressed with this. That's really our problem with it. The other part is, you know, what I see with the pedestrian walkway, nothing is, that's all showing just going into the park and ride and going to the bus. It's not showing the pedestrians having to walk down, more than likely coming out, walking down Cody Lane to get to the underpass. That also raises another concern of mine. If we put a roundabout there, that all the roundabouts eliminate your stop signs, and we have bicycles rolling through, pedestrians rolling through, and, you know, we're going to increase what's going to come out of Cody Lane into that roundabout. So I really think that needs to be addressed. And we've actually, as the homeowners association, nobody has come to us, you know, proposing this. You know, we all found out about it, that this development was happening, but we haven't been brought in with the whole planning on the increased traffic on for Cody Lane. And I hope the town council can address these concerns. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who else would like to make comments? All right, I will close the public hearing then at 8:26. Do you have something?
I just wanted to ask, if it's okay with council, a clarifying question of Jim, just for council to make sure we understand the presentation. Jim, on your presentation, were there any differences between alternative 4 and what your kind of ultimate reasonable recommendation was? Or was it
Just the,
bike path? Was it-
making a good set of pedestrian bike facilities along the south edge of the new development and along the east side of the new development, crossing Cody Lane on the way to the park and ride. Other than that, it's alternative 4.
So that's path on the south and east side, basically, for
Yeah,
bike and pedestrian.
behind the mini warehouse units, parallel to Fial Lane, but inside the project from the tree canopy, from the existing trees, from the mature trees.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff, for asking that. Okay, I will open it up to council questions and comments now. If you have any feedback, and as James mentioned, we have basically, and I don't have them right in front of me, but 3 things that we were going to try to focus on, which included affordable housing in the community benefit, traffic generation, and this few lane discussion, which, as Jim's putting out, is kind of more of a network discussion anyway. So, and we, just as a time check, we are 8 minutes over. So we're not going to be able to cover all that tonight, but we will get another bite out of the apple. But I'll open it up to questions and comments.
I had a question. It says here 56% would be restricted to storage units for the storage. What other kind of businesses could go in here? Like, could I have a food truck out of one of these storage units?
So it is limited through the use table of the Basalt PUD. We did some restrictions to that in our proposal. Theoretically, a food truck, our proposal says that any business use would be a secondary business use, not a primary place where you would have visiting customers. So theoretically, a caterer or a food truck could park a truck in one of these units, come and get it, and go for the day.
But if my food truck's my primary business, I could still have walk-up customers. Is there a chance I could have walk-up customers?
Well, it
A
would
bike
be,
shop. Could I have a bike shop?
it'd be restricted by the HOA because it is gated and secured facility. And so if the HOA was aware that someone was using it in that way, it would be restricted through those guidelines.
And so with that gated access, that means no business could have like walk-up customers.
Essentially, yes. That was the limiting factor we were asked to put in place as we looked at the allowable uses in the PUD, to limit it to secondary places of business, more towards the storage purposes. I would say with the adjusted trip calculation, and maybe Curtis could talk to this, that could accommodate some more of that use, but that hasn't been considered yet. We were still
Like some of the
restricting it.
examples you put in there included like mechanic and things like that.
Like a bike mechanic or?
Yeah, or a car mechanic. That was in one of the examples that you gave, like the gypsum, similar kind of
Okay.
businesses.
Yes, the gypsum development does not have the restriction we have in place. That actually allows places to have it as a primary place of business, which we prohibit. So it's not an exact comparison. They actually probably have higher business use than we would ever have, given the initial restriction that it can't be a primary place of business. So if you think of any business, is it their primary place of business, then that's a no. A food truck to me would be the primary place of business,
Yeah.
and I think that would be a no.
What about like a shipping? Could I have like a drop shipping business here that receives orders? and
Again,
sends
if it's a primary place of business, no. I mean, if,
Can't be customer facing,
we were thinking, what about a local party planner, event planner? You plan a wedding, you need to store a ton of stuff, but you maybe just go in there once a month with a customer and say, we have this decoration, take a look at it. That kind of business use is what we had in mind.
A planned appointment-driven visit.
Kind of. So maybe sometimes a customer would come in, but not a walk-in customer. It's probably what we think. And again, all the other developments, it looks like it's 90% used for storage. So that's why we're quite flexible on restricting it, because we really feel like we have it there at 45%, but we think it's highly unlikely that it's even going to be used that much, but we want to leave that door open because we think it could be, also good for the community to some extent, as long as it doesn't impact traffic.
You also said there was only one comparable type of facility in Glenwood, right, for storage. What makes this different than the storage that's already in Southside?
So it's the size of the unit.
Okay.
It's a larger door, and it's a 20-foot by 50-foot size unit. Used for larger RVs, for boats, for trailers. A typical Southside storage unit is 10 by 20, 10 by 30 at max. Typically, those doors are 8 feet tall. With a roof rack, with a food truck, anything like that, you would not be able to get that into these units. And so it's the size of the unit that makes it unique.
What about utilities? Do they have, is it water?
They have water.
Bathroom in my?
So they have water and sewer hooked up to the units. They're typically sold as shells.
Okay.
And then they have electrical to the unit as well. Some people, if they use them as a storage, they might put a kitchenette in there or a shower. There are restrictions in the code that we've discussed with James from the beginning of this of what defines a residential unit, and that would be limited. So it's a reduction in what you can actually have in that kitchen that makes it a residential unit or not. And again, the residential portion would be restricted by the HOA as well, because we know that is a concern. And I'm actively working on about 4 of these projects currently, and that's a consideration by every planning and zoning and city council I've spoken to. And the operators of these facilities are very heavily strict on that.
And I'm sorry, I know you already said, I just wanted to I got my notes right. You said that restriction on what could go into the storage unit is a function of the HOA?
Correct.
Okay.
It's, and James, you might need to correct me if I'm wrong. It's the HOA would have their bylaws on uses, then it falls to the city zoning or the PUD. And if someone wanted to put a business in there, they would need to get a business license or business permit for that space. So it would also be permitted through the city.
Yeah, and, the restrictions would be carried over into the PUD, so, the first line of enforcement would be the HOA, and then the town would kind of be the second line of enforcement.
Other questions or comments, including online from Hannah and Angel? I'll go ahead and ask one, well, folks may be thinking of their questions. The personal use storage units, in other words, the ones that aren't designated as light industrial and A, E, F, and G buildings, are they gonna be built any differently than the other units that will either will be light industrial?
They would be sold as they call it a cold gray shell, so it would be steel studs and an open unit. It could be built out by a personal user, depending if they want to put a mezzanine in there, or say with someone with that wanted to work on their own cars and wanted to put kind of a mini shop in there. But again, that doesn't rise to the level of a true auto mechanic, because they're changing their oil or maybe doing minor work in those. And so, but they would be sold similar, whether it's the business use or the personal use.
So they're gonna be built out the same, and then it's up to the buyer to finish them out?
The individual, yep.
And then it's just a matter of the covenants for the use?
Correct.
But otherwise, they're gonna be identical in all the buildings?
Yep.
And
any
not finished out?
And any interior fit out would be permitted through the building department.
Okay.
As well.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. Go ahead.
A couple of things. First, I just wanted to say thank you. I feel like you guys really listened the last time you were here, and I appreciate the time that you've spent investigating ways that this intersection can be improved. Thank you for taking the time to do that. I have a question for the town. Is the town planning at all to improve this intersection? Or are we essentially waiting on a developer to pay for it?
Well, the town hasn't had previous plans to improve the few lane access, and it has really come up, you know, in relation to the new application here. So we do not have funds currently budgeted to make improvements to few lane. So that would have to be another discussion.
Okay, you know, you're right, it has brought the neighbors out to talk about the existing issues. So I'm just wondering if this application, you know, didn't go through, what are we saying to the neighbors who are already saying there's an issue?
I think we'd have to have another town council discussion about if this application didn't move forward, you know, whether the town would be interested in making further improvements.
And do we know how many more residences are scheduled to come online in Southside that are approved but haven't started to build yet or aren't occupied?
Yeah, in Stotts Mill, we have probably, there's a total of 49 lots, single-family duplex lots, and, you know, they're probably about a third built out, a third to half, I'd say a third, so you're probably looking in about the range of 30 more.
Including the,
Yeah, individual homes.
is that up on the west side of South Side too, closer to Rio Grande? There's a couple small parcels.
On the west side of Southside Drive, those are vacant parcels. They're not currently in the town. They're in unincorporated Picken County. They have future land use designations on them, so there is a certain amount of development that the master plan would say might be acceptable on those lots through a review process.
Clay and Paul?
Those would be, yeah, the
That's
Basalt
another
Design
7
District.
acres, isn't it?
Yes,
On their warehouse site?
adjacent to their warehouse site, yeah.
It was more than just Stotts Mill.
Well, not currently approved. Approved, there's the 30 in Stottsville.
Contemplated in the master plan, but, yeah.
That's quite a bit.
So I have a question on process here. You know, we're having a public hearing. There's a suggested motion to continue the public hearing. And this is all very good information and, you know, the conversation and dialogue is developing, but when do we get to like the gating factors as part of the application process, like sketch plan, et cetera? Is that, like, when does that occur? Is that something that has to be triggered by the applicant? I'm just trying to understand and triangulate on that.
So this process is kind of one round with P&Z and council, and then there's a condo process that would follow up that review if they received approval of the one round of P&Z and council. Staff has not provided a draft ordinance for you as of yet. We wanted to kind of have some feedback on kind of these bigger items before we brought forward an ordinance. The P&Z did recommend certain conditions that would be included in a draft ordinance, and staff can bring that back at a future meeting, potentially the next meeting, for consideration if that's acceptable.
Okay, so.
In other words, this is your main round of review on this project. This isn't a new PUD where you'd have that sketch, preliminary, and final. This is because within an existing PUD, this is set up as a special use review and an amendment to the PUD. So this is the round of review, and as James said, kind of based on the discussion of these preliminary issues, that'll kind of inform an initial draft of the ordinance with staff recommended conditions and those that have been directed by council at this point.
Correct, yeah.
And then that'll be your typical, you know, 2 reading
Correct.
sketch plan review.
Yeah, it would be, for this approval, there'd be
yeah.
Is there an
Two readings
approval
of the
with this? Or was that gonna be a suggested motion, like maybe at the next meeting? I'm just trying to
It would be
where's the approval in this round?
It would be to bring, now that there's been some preliminary discussion on kind of these fundamental issues with the project, to introduce the form of the ordinance on the application, like potentially at the next meeting, and then to approve the project, if that's where council were to go, would be an approval of that ordinance on first reading, and then an approval of that ordinance on second reading, and then the project would be approved. So it's within this process.
Is there,
Sometimes there's, on these land use applications, you know, oftentimes there will be the ordinance that comes along with the initial presentation from the applicant. But I know on some of the other bigger ones, there's been similar to what we've done here, where there's getting some sense and direction of council before drafting an ordinance that has a bunch of conditions in it.
okay, that makes sense. And will there be a prelim, or a sketch prelim final, is it, or just one?
This is it.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful, thanks for.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to what
Okay,
Jeff.
yeah, that's, because, yeah, I was wondering that.
I think the rest of my feedback is I do feel like it's too dense. And I think that a development this dense is gonna have a really big impact on Southside. And in order for me to feel okay moving forward with that, I would have needed to hear more from the Southside residents. And I don't know how exactly, you know, we should go about that, but I do feel like there needs to be more outreach, and I'm not even saying it's on your shoulders to do that. But I do wanna feel like the residents of Southside have had an opportunity to weigh in and voice their concerns, and I know some of them have done that, but I would really like to hear from more people in Southside, because I think that this development will have a big impact.
Thank you. Other comments or further questions?
I mean, I had another question, I'm sorry, I've got a lot of questions. So my understanding is that what you're really asking for us is amendments to the master plan for warehouse and storage to be added for the industrial piece, and high-density residential for the residential piece. Is that kind of correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's several PUD amendments, one related to building height, to go slightly above the current building height in the PUD. And then there are master plan amendments that would be required. One of them is to change the future land use map from existing land use to warehouse storage for the southern portion, and multifamily residential, high-density residential for the northern portion adjacent to the park and ride for the residential. And then the other master plan amendment request that would be required is to adjust the typology in the master plan on the project to allow for the residential to be completely separated from the commercial storage, which is how it's proposed.
And so I guess what I'm curious, and I appreciate you coming back, listening to the prior comments, and coming back with a lot more affordable housing, but what could be built, like what part of this project could be built without any council approval? Like without having to come to council, could none of this be built? There's no storage, there's no residential?
They could, keep the building and site as it is and put a new use in there that's consistent with the industrial requirements without a council approval. Basically, any new facilities require at least a site plan review, which includes a council review as part of that.
Is residential part of the current existing usage of that?
Residential is not. Basically, residential of any kind requires a special review, which includes a P&Z council review.
Okay. In the master plan amendment.
In the master plan amendment.
And that was a big part of our initial site planning, going back to starting the process with P&Z 2 years ago, was looking at replacing the facility, replacing the square footage in kind, what would trigger housing, what would trigger those different changes to that. and then the traffic being a huge concern. And so looking at uses and looking at adding housing, because we were right by the park and ride, is kind of where we landed with that. And when we landed on those uses, it didn't make sense to stack them in the typology, which is why we're asking for the split. And so that's kind of what led to these iterations of design that we're at right now.
And I have one last question. I think it's for James here. It says on the application that they're doing a fee in lieu of the Basalt Parkland dedication requirement.
Yes.
That's basically saying a development of this side would have to have some sort of park or open space. And they're suggesting instead of that, they'll pay a fee that goes towards supporting other parks.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes. And it's assessed on only the residential portion. Parkland dedication only comes in as a requirement on residential.
I couldn't imagine it'd be much parkland, right, for these 4 apartments?
Oh, well, 47 units.
47 units.
So the fee is about $11,000 per unit on the 47 units.
And that can only be used for existing park?
No, it could be used to establish new parks or to improve existing parks in town.
And how much green space would a multifamily development of this size require?
On the residential component where the parkland dedication requirement comes in, our code says that per each person generated, or let me get this right, per each, what is it? 25, I'll have to
I'd
look
have to
it
look
up.
it up,
Yeah, we could come back with that, but.
Because I did wonder when looking at the residential why there isn't any green space. And I just think if I was a person living here, I wouldn't find that to be very enjoyable, that it's only buildings and no green space. So I would encourage you to reconsider that.
And Hannah.
Thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
Hannah, yeah, go ahead.
Hannah, if you'd like to, let me see, wait a minute.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I was just about to make a similar comment on the green space, that I think with that many people in there, having some parkland would better fit the character of Basalt. And I guess a question maybe about the master plan is that, and this could be for staff, my understanding is typically when folks ask for a variance, like the 38-foot height, there has to be some sort of community benefit that incentivizes council to support something outside of that original community-oriented vision. And I'm wondering if in future meetings on this, we could get some examples of what folks are asking for. Like one example I have is for the town of Basalt building, where we're having 100% all affordable, all electric units. That's like a 3-foot variance from the original vision. And so if we could get more context for what being that much over the height limitations would be, I think that would be helpful in terms of assessing what community benefits we might want to see.
Yes, staff can bring that back at future meeting.
So,
Thank you.
thanks, Hannah. So I'll go ahead and make a comment. You know, in thinking about where we are in the process and thinking about what this project entails in the master plans, I have a lot of trepidation in changing the master plan in order to kind of fit a project within the town. In other words, you guys have this project, you've been receptive to the feedback, you've improved the proposal, but fundamentally, it doesn't fit the master plan. And if we go and allow the master plan to be amended, if we choose to amend the master plan in order to fit the project in it, no matter how good the project is, that kind of invites picking apart the master plan on an a la carte basis in order to shoehorn various projects into various parts of Basalt. And at this point, I'm not really comfortable doing that. I mean, I'm making it sound like the worst case scenario, but it's a slippery slope, right? People are like, well, we want to, there's variances and things that we can do as a town, like river access and height and things that are more nuanced. But this is, a departure completely from what the master plan envisions for this parcel. On top of that, like any housing that's close to mass transit like that, like we can't afford as a community to not have that be affordable. So we have, we're introducing free market housing, more free market housing after we amend the master plan. I'm not going to be able to support that at this point. So, I mean, if staff is looking for feedback, that's kind of where I sit based on the application at this time.
Yeah, I think that every parcel on the south side is gonna be impacted in the same way. And I'm not comfortable that a second roundabout at Cody Lane is gonna solve it either. And I think that main piece of infrastructure that was envisioned was blocked, and now we're kind of stuck because that's a pretty significant piece of roadway that was in the plan and accomplished some multiple goals. And, that's still hanging out there. There was a little bit of conversation about it earlier. But I think that anything that comes through in the pipeline over the next 5 to 10 years that isn't already in the pipeline, whether it's Stotts Mill or Clay and Paul, is going to be running up against the same issues. And how long, and you're going to have to accumulate a certain amount of cash before you could actually build the roundabout at that intersection. So yeah, the choice here is, do we go down the road of temporary infrastructure and improvements, or do we go down the road of what we thought we were going down a long time ago and really solve the problem for, the next generations? And that's where I'm stuck. There's just too many unresolved pieces of the pie here that don't fit in. I think you mentioned the legacy piece. There's a legacy out there of ranch land around it. I'm curious about the Pickett County open space that Hannah mentioned, the green space there. It's gated, and I know there's been complications out there before with the adjacent ranches. So 3 Mile Street plan we had, a lot of things like that aren't going to be solved by moving forward with this development. That's where I'm at.
I'd echo a lot of those comments from David and Rick, that in a place that is transit connected, I think we want to really nail those projects and add a lot of community benefit, make sure we are maxing out affordable housing. And I feel like we're trying to kind of shoehorn some of the pieces into this to fit. And I really appreciate the applicants taking our comments to heart and making changes and really hearing us out and trying to make these things fit. But I have some concerns that the content itself might just not fit here, right? We're talking about putting gated luxury man caves in a spot that is transit connected and next to a neighborhood and that merits green space. And I think there's a lot of pieces that have yet to find a landing spot that feels comfortable within the master plan, or traffic concerns, or childcare, kid safety concerns for me.
Thanks, Hannah. Angel, I know you're on. Did you have anything? take that as a no. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, you can come up, yeah.
I was just wondering if you could guide us a little bit what you have in mind when you say more affordable housing. You know, like sometimes I'm negotiating with myself. I don't know exactly what you're solving for. What numbers would be helpful for you? You know, we want to collaborate, but I'm not sure what it is that you're looking for exactly. So if you could be just more specific in guiding us. And also the master plan amendment, and I might be mistaken, so please do correct me. It's just that it is zoned for the uses, but we're putting the residential portion on one side and the industrial on the other. It is zoned for mixed use. So the amount of unit mix is in the master plan. It's just that we're not stacking the residential above the industrial part, if that makes sense.
Is it zoned high density?
Pardon me?
Is it zoned for high density housing?
So the master plan has a future land use map, and the future land use map has designations for the anticipated development on certain properties, and then it also identifies certain properties as existing land use, so that they're not anticipated to be redeveloped over the life of the master plan, basically. And so this property was designated as existing land use, and so you'd have to adjust that. The zoning, the underlying zoning is industrial with a PUD on it, and so the industrial zone district and the PUD would allow for residential as a special review use with review of impacts and review of how it fits into the character. So that's kind of the concept of the special review use. So it could allow for that. And then the other master plan amendment required is that currently the typologies require intermixing of the residential and commercial, so kind of a true mixed use. And so this project separates those, so there would be an amendment needed to the master plan for that.
And so, because what we've seen is that, I mean, the maximum of affordable housing was Basalt Circle Center, where there were, I think, 60%. Because we've tried to look at, okay, what have recent developments done? And is that more in line with town council expectations?
I think in this case, my hangup is on just amending the master plan to suit an individual development. Like that's a bridge too far for me at this point. I would, if this were zoned or the master plan contemplated housing, I'd want it to be affordable near mass transit. But I mean, even stepping back from that, this is a bridge too far for me as far as amending the master plan to accommodate a development application. That's my main.
Would you agree that the amendment is in spirit very similar to what it's zoned for? Even though it's a technical amendment, I do think the spirit of what we're doing is in line with what it's zoned for. I don't know if you would agree. That's what we've discussed. That we're not, because early on we did ask James, could we rezone it completely residential? And he said, no, that would be too far of a stretch. Because we did consider that. So I'm just maybe putting that out there to consider. And then also, I was wondering on the neighborhood support, and by the way, maybe you can address John Fitzpatrick's comments if you guys are concerned about that, but I have reached out to pretty much every neighbor. As I said, we had unanimous approval of our HOA review committee, and what I've seen is that people are, when they would be here if they were opposed. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. What form would you like to see that support? I mean, do you want, would you like them to be here? Would you like them to, I don't know, send in letters? I'm not sure what kind of neighborhood support you would be looking for. Because I can tell you, and I spend every day for the last 10 years at this place, I know the neighbors, I've talked to pretty much everyone. The only reason why I haven't talked to John Fitzpatrick, I don't think actually, I think he's the owner. I've talked to the business that's there. Can you guide me in that direction?
You know, that is a really good question, and I would have to think about that. Sometimes I think that the way that we receive information from separate neighborhoods in Basalt should be more streamlined. There should be community committees so that we can have people who are dialed in and regularly communicating with one another, and that's not anything to do with you. I think sometimes we hear it's just based on who shows up and not maybe a real sampling of like everybody who lives there. So yeah, that is a good question and not something that I have figured out for myself. I don't even really have a problem with the way that you've laid out the development and separating it. I don't have an issue with that. I just think going back to what Mayor Knight has said, it's not in the master plan, and I think that there are reasons that it's not in the master plan because it sounds like the infrastructure isn't there to support something like this. And there are other homes, estimated 40 more single-family residences that are scheduled to come online, and we haven't seen the impact of that yet. So I don't even necessarily think that this is all bad the way you've done it. I just think it's not in the master plan, and it's kind of not your turn.
And could you be specific what parts of the infrastructure you think are not equipped to deal with it?
Well, obviously the whole intersection issue around Few Lane, and I do appreciate that you've addressed that. But the issues with Cody Lane as well. Just there's a lot more residential that's coming online in Southside, and we haven't solved for what that's going to be yet. So I'm not saying that I would never vote for something like this. It just seems like it's not in the master plan. There are other things ahead of this in the pipeline.
Well, I thought we've addressed that Few Lane, we're alleviating this. And Cody Lane, I can have our traffic engineer talk to this. I'm just saying this because we've really tried to address all the infrastructure issues possible with it. So if you say there are some, I actually think we can address them because we've thought through this for 2.5 years. So if you think there's a specific one you want to talk about, maybe, you can say 2 words about, Cody Lane. I think we've talked about Few Lane, and that, for what it's worth, we would improve it, and the proposed development would, at no point would it have any negative impact on Few Lane. It's just that that's an opportunity to improve it, but it was never going to have a negative impact on Few Lane. And I just wanted to consider, the opportunity to have this housing next to a Rafta bus stop. As you've seen, we were right there. And again, if you wanted to negotiate more on what that would look like, we're open. And
just to answer your question on public comment, just if you do have persons who are supportive of your project or to get their comments made a part of the public record, they can do that in writing, or they need to show up to a meeting and make public comment.
Yeah.
So
If they can't make the meeting, writing,
those are the
we read
ways
every letter.
those are the ways to get it into the public
Okay,
record.
well, I saw it somewhere there. Our neighborhood, everyone says, yes, I'm in favor of it, because otherwise I would be standing there. But it's hard to get people out of their home on the phone, is my experience, but that's fine.
Yep, thank you, Marika. She obviously would like for me to answer that question that was posed in public comment with regards to Cody Lane. As you know, the residential portion of this project, the access would be to and from Cody Lane. The residential is expected to generate 21 peak hour trips, and so that's the highest volume during the peak hour. That's equivalent to about 1 vehicle every 3 minutes. And so that is not a significant traffic volume in terms of the volume of traffic on that roadway. Looking at the existing counts there, That roadway carries about 130 in the peak hour. Today, we're adding 20, so it'll be about 150. The capacity of that roadway is significantly higher. Even if we were looking at a collector type, it would be about 5,000 vehicles per day. So, you know, this is only about 30% of that capacity. So there's plenty of traffic availability, reserve capacity in Cody Lane, so there's no traffic impact relative to that.
And it just, I wanted to give you a little more clarity, just going into the master plan and looking at typology 3. I mean, some fundamental differences is it talks about integrating the employee housing into the commercial. And there's some elements to it that are very aesthetically and functionally fundamental that are different than what you're proposing. Not that what you're proposing is you know, negative in and of itself. It just does not align to what is envisioned in the master plan as written today. And in amending that just for a project, it just seems premature at this point. If council wants to consider amending the master plan more holistically, you know, because it has been 6 years, but that would be one thing. But to do it just for one project, I mean, look at, you can go, it's on page 132. I mean, it's just very different than what you guys are proposing.
And I think what we found in the initial discussions was the mixed-use commercial mixed with the traffic is somewhat at odds. Of if you did a mixed-use commercial, you would have much higher traffic counts because you'd be looking at more intense type of uses towards the development of that site, leading to more of the lower-end warehouse storage type of the site that blended the existing use and in discussions with planning and zoning, we talked about the need to protect some of the industrial space within Basalt still, because as it gets eliminated, it never tends to come back. And so that was the blending of keeping some small intensity, low intensity industrial uses in that as we worked our way through a process, just giving you some backup to the reasoning.
I appreciate that, yeah, but we got to look a little more further out. And like Gloria was saying in her comments at the beginning of the night, you know, we finally made the list for the underpass and additional egress out of Southside.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be down the line. Like all of these decisions that we're making are going to last a very long time. And right now, what this, yes, to your point about that your proposal would have lower traffic counts. Well, that fits now, but what we need to be able to make decisions on based on the master plan is a much further time horizon. So that's why, you know, we can't just look at, oh, what can it handle now? We need to look at what we could be doing in the future based on all the things that are envisioned for the area and for the town.
Yeah, I think when we start straying from the master plan, it starts to feel like it just matters, you know, things get built based on who's sitting in these seats. And I think that's why the master plan exists, right? So there's some continuity. And I think a development like this would be something that would need to be considered in a master plan, these sorts of changes.
All right, so I know we're quite a bit over, but
I was going to say, James, just from a process standpoint, you know, whatever direction the council wants to go, I think process-wise, continuing the public hearing to allow staff to draft an ordinance for council to then vote on, is that what you're?
That would be the next step, yeah.
So, I mean, that would be our staff's recommendation, is to continue the public hearing to May 12th, and staff will have an ordinance in the packet, and then you can continue the discussion and be in a position to make a decision on the application at that point.
So I'd entertain a motion.
Can I ask a question?
Well, it's kind of not time for that. We closed the public.
It'll be real quick.
Now, this is, you know, we can't do it.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so I would entertain a motion that we continue the public hearing to May 12th, and at that point, staff will have an ordinance for us to consider.
Second.
Well, I would entertain a motion,
Well,
so, so moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Let's begin with Hannah Berman,
Yes.
Angela Anderson,
Yes.
Rick Stevens,
Yes.
Angel Dupré-Bouchard.
I think we lost
May
Angel.
have lost Angela, or Angel, okay. Greg Shaffrin
Yes.
and David Knight.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate all the work you guys have done. I mean, next up is 7B, which is a public hearing and first reading ordinance number 7, series of 2026, an ordinance of the Town Council of the Town of Basalt, Colorado, approving code amendments to the Town Code Section 18-103, to adopt by reference the 2025 Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code. Jeff, James, and Mitch.
I will take the lead on this one.
Okay.
And so a few years ago, the state legislature adopted legislation to form the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Board, and they tasked that state board with adopting a model wildfire resiliency code. And then from there, there's a requirement for local governments that have areas that are within the wildland-urban interface to adopt a code that, at a minimum, meets the wildfire resiliency code. And so the resiliency code regulates the wildland-urban interface in areas that have fire hazard risk to try to mitigate against those risks with structures and with site and area requirements. And so the wildland-urban interface is determined based on state maps that identify wildfire hazard areas. And there's areas of no wildfire risk, fire intensity risk, and then there's low, moderate, and severe fire intensity risk areas. So in Basalt, there are areas with no fire intensity designation, and those are areas within Willits, some areas within Southside, mostly, and then there are areas that are currently mapped as moderate wildfire hazard risk. And so the Wildfire Resiliency Code, again, has two big sections. It has structure hardening requirements, and it has site and area requirements. And the areas within those code that you have to comply with, again, depend on your wildfire hazard intensity classification. And so if you're 0, you don't have to comply with anything. If you're low, you have to comply with what are called Class 1 requirements. And if you're medium or severe, you have to comply with Class 2 requirements, which is everything. So on the structure hardening piece, those things are mostly relate to building materials for your roof, your siding, your maintenance of your eaves and soffits and gutters, location of fences and retaining walls, fire-rated glass. It's mostly the materials of your building. And so new construction would have to comply with, that is in these fire hazard intensity area, with these structure hardening requirements. There are also some requirements that if you do a certain level of replacement of your house, remodeling, that you would have to comply with certain aspects of the structure hardening regulations. And another way to look at it is you're exempt from complying with them if you do some work on your house up to a certain point. So if you're going to replace less than 25% of your roof, you're exempt from these Class 2, from these structure hardening requirements. If you're going to replace more than 25% of your roof, you got to do the whole thing. It's got to comply with the code. If you're going to build an addition of less than 500 square feet, you're exempt from the requirements. If you build more, that addition has to comply with the code. If you're going to replace less than 25% of your siding, you're exempt. If you're going to replace more than 25%, you got to comply with the structure hardening requirements of the code. On the site and area requirements, they are really three different areas that a property is broken down into. There's an immediate zone, an intermediate zone, and then this more extended zone. And within the immediate zone, it's a 0 to 5 foot area around your house. The goal of the code is to really hardscape that. And so most vegetation is not permitted. Ignition resistant vegetation is. There are some exemptions for larger mature trees that might be within that 0 to 5 foot zone. The next zone's 5 to 30 feet, and most of the requirements have to do with tree spacing and overhangs over your roof. And then the larger zone is 30 to 100 feet, and there's kind of canopy spacing requirements. Like the structure hardening, the site and area requirements are only triggered, well, maybe unlike, but it's for new development. If you're doing work on your house, if you're replacing your roof and you're triggered these structure and area requirements, you don't have to comply with all of the site and area requirements. The only element within the Wildfire Resiliency Code of when you're doing work on your structure that would trigger an existing structure that would trigger some level of compliance with the site and area requirements is if you're replacing your siding and you have to do so in a manner that requires compliance with the code, you have to comply with that 0 to 5 foot zone of your house. So that would be removing vegetation, hardscaping it, allowing only ignition resistant vegetation.
Is that 25% of the siding? Was that what the number
You're
was?
going to do more than 25%. Yep.
Okay.
So those are kind of high level what the requirements of the code are. The code also it's enforced by, would live within the building code. It's a model code, so it'd be adopted with some local amendments that I'll get to in a minute. But the code does come with some discretion for the building official to make some determinations on alternatives to certain materials, so long as they don't increase the wildfire hazard risk or fire hazard safety, and they're within the intent of the code. Same with kind of some modifications to on specific plans for properties, maybe if there's through an somebody has a wildfire study done that says, actually if I maintain things this way, it's not going to increase the fire hazard intensity, let's leave this tree there. There's some flexibility and discretion for building officials to make those determinations. We did include a few local amendments, and again, these are to kind of, I would say, to further provide discretion to the building official in making determinations as to when a fire hazard might exist and defining what an unsafe structure is. These were just things in reviewing the code that I kind of viewed as more connecting some of the dots between what's in the code and the appendices and better defining unsafe structure, which is kind of littered throughout the code otherwise. Those are the main local amendments, and the proposal is really to adopt the code mostly as it is. I think in a prior work session we had discussed that the code could be adopted to apply uniformly through town regardless of your wildfire hazard designation. So even in the map, there's areas that don't have a wildfire hazard designation, or if they were low, they would still have to comply with all of the requirements of the code. That was kind of an option for discussion that we had at a previous work session. The way this is proposed in this ordinance is not to do that. It is to look at how your property is designated from a fire hazard intensity standpoint on the map, and from there determine how the code would apply. Part of that is because the town already has pretty significant wildfire hazard regulations on the books that, at least for the low intensity classifications, certainly exceed that, and I'll let Mitch, you speak to this a little bit, but I'd say on a whole, we're 90% of the way there. But by looking to the fire hazard intensity and not just uniformly applying it across the town, it does at least not avoid applying some restrictions that wouldn't unnecessarily have to apply to these properties unless the council chose to do that. I think the last thing I would mention is that Mitch, as a building official, and Chris Beiser as our arborist. They've reviewed the code and have some potential amendments to the code itself that would not, and I guess let me rephrase this a little bit. Within the code, I mentioned these alternatives and modifications. Those really relate to site-specific determinations. These are not wholesale changes to the code. And so some of the wholesale changes to the code that Mitch and Chris would like to make, there is a process to do that with the state, where you can petition the state through a variance process to say, locally, we would like to see these kind of amendments. We think that they're not going to lessen our ability to protect against wildfire hazards, and therefore, state, you should approve them, and then they can come back to council to approve them. So that process with the state opened up a few months ago and is available to pursue. And so what staff's recommending is to adopt the code as it's written with these few local amendments that wouldn't lessen the restrictiveness of it. And then give us, the staff, a chance to see if the state would approve these variances. If they do, then we could bring them back to council at a future date. So that's the code in a nutshell. I think most of your local communities, there's an obligation. I guess the last thing I would say is, I think there's been a lot of statewide communities have been grappling with how to adopt and implement this code. And to that end, there was some legislation introduced into the state legislature this session to extend the deadlines for adopting the code to next year, and also require that the state board review this code at certain intervals to make appropriate changes, similar to the way the ICC does for building codes. That legislature was defeated, so we're stuck with this deadline of adopting and implementing this code by July 1st. And I think that's the main overview, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have. And Mitch had it. If you had anything to add, or Mitch is also available for questions if you have. He can speak more to the building material issues than I could if you have questions on that.
That was a good summary. You guys have anything to add?
Just on point. Exactly.
Nothing, Jeff.
You have any questions clarifying questions for Jeff? Otherwise, I'll open the public hearing. This is a public hearing. So I'll go ahead and open the public hearing here at 9:24 for anybody in the room who wants to come up and make comments. I can tell no one will. We have one person online. I have a few people online. Anybody online want to make comments from the public? Go ahead and close the hearing, 9:24, and open it up for council comments.
I don't want to task our folks with anything more than they already have to do, but you have to take the same approach with fire mitigation that you do with irrigation management on domestic watering, and changing people's mindset to water less, manage their vegetation, appropriate vegetation, and also to do the basics of creating a defensible space around their homes is really hard to do. And it is technically challenging for the average citizen to do either one of those things without some sort of incentive. We recently dedicated a pretty good chunk of change in one of the subdivisions to allow people to access funding to help pay for the defensible space cleanups. As soon as that was noticed, we were approached by other entities that wanted to take a lion's share of that funding and use it for bigger projects. And what I think, for me personally, that wasn't what the intent was. The intent was to incentivize our homeowners, I haven't looked at the map lately, but this year, there's no such thing as an area that's not prone to wildfire. There just really isn't. And, we've chased this tail for a long time, and building is great. The building codes, you have an enforceable way to do the right thing. And in HOA covenants and all these other things that are supposed to be enforceable are just not enforceable. It has to be through peer pressure and getting people organized in the neighborhood to share expenses on property lines, to understand what the projects look like. James and I went through the ESA piece of this. It took a long time. It's, for the average person, it's a tough road. So if there's anything we can do, and they've had a giant meeting at the library last night about or Thursday night with the water issues, and they've had conversation after conversations with agencies in the valley with trying to get counties to adopt recommendations on wildfire urban interface language with fire departments. It has taken years. And now I think we're just at the cusp of having a real risk in front of us. And it would be terrible to have wildfire and no water to fight it. So it's coming to a head here. And I've been frustrated for quite a while with trying to make progress and get the culture shifted to work around and get these defensible spaces created. You can have, we have an arborist that can drive a neighborhood and identify, and I know that our staff guys could do this, identify hazards and priorities in neighborhoods and adjoining properties and help maybe get those guys on board to facilitate some basic cleanup. So that's just one of my things, but and maybe it's just an outreach that we can do every time we have a Earth Day or a concert or something else. We can also promote compost, fire mitigation, and water conservation. Get the triple threat out there or something. Thank you for letting me soapbox.
Appreciate it.
I had a question for you, Jeff.
Yeah.
If I can. So by July 1st, you're saying with this new ordinance, people aren't gonna have to remove plantings?
No.
Except for those more, no.
No. Only if you,
Trigger this new.
if you trigger it. And the
Okay.
triggers are a new development.
Got it.
Or if you're replacing more than 25% of your siding, you have to do the 0 to 5 foot zone.
Got it. It's only these triggering events,
Correct.
it's not retroactive.
Correct. Yep.
Got it.
Well, if you ask for the fire department to come out for an assessment,
They'll say that.
they'll tell you to do those things.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Then you should comply. So that's not code-driven, that's just insurance-driven at this point.
There was a note in, I think, the March 10th minutes about people becoming unhoused due to this. And so that's where I was thinking that was be something, that caught my attention. I don't know what that was about.
That was
trying to
more
go back to
about if, let's say, there was an incident and somebody had to replace,
Rebuild.
the amount of siding was 26% of their siding instead of 25, and so then they had to do the siding for their entire home, but just how costly
Plus
that
the
would
site remediation.
Exactly. So I think the point that Angel was making was, we're gonna guess that the insurance is probably only gonna pay
Yeah.
for that part that was damaged, and then you're on the hook for the rest of it, because now you've gotta bring it up to,
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought this was like a retroactive.
No.
And then that brings up the last point that said in your memo about staff discuss making town council the deciding body for modifications rather than the building official.
It was kind of an appeal process, so if you had a situation where there was a request for a tree removal that was required and there was issues with neighbors not liking the tree removal or something of that nature, that staff would have the ability to kick that up to council.
I think that's a great idea. Make town council the bad guy rather than,
Well, just, it makes for a better kind of mediation scenario.
is that part of the code as written?
I don't think so.
We can consider adjusting that if it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, once we talk about mitigation, we partner with the fire department quite a bit. So, actively going out and actually looking for ladder fuels and how it's set up, that's, I think the fire department really takes lead in that sort of scenario. So, we're basically on the new construction, how it works. I'm sure if we get requests or complaints, we have to respond some way. But, you know, it will be a touchy situation to make sure we make the right decisions when we have to.
Yeah.
So on that, as written, there's the discretion of the building official to permit modifications so long as it's not essentially increasing the fire hazard risk and it meets the intent of the code. And so maybe if this is the direction the council wants to go, the process would be if there's an unfavorable determination of the building official, it could be appealed to the town council rather than make somebody go to town council if the building official is
Yeah, yeah.
it's
we
more
should-
expeditious and less cumbersome for an owner to just deal with the building official if they're gonna get what they want.
I mean, that's more typical of our code. We're an
Council
appeal
after
body.
building official. That's-
TRC takes 2 or 3 months and costs $600.
Well, we have staff discussions on things like that to at least get to a point where we can understand what's a realistic point of view on things before we make any decisions. You know, it's, you know, an amendment, like Jeff has mentioned, you know, we're 90% there. We've been so far ahead of the game since before the state even came in and started doing this. You know, we've done really well. And being able to continue with our current code on the areas that aren't even rated is above and beyond. The extra that we have, the extra mile that we would have to go per the state is on the moderates, as Jeff mentioned. And that just is that extra 10% that has to come into play. You know, and if we make a proposal to try to make our code as acceptable by the state for the whole town as we have it now, and they accept it, then that might be another path to make, because you know, in my opinion, we are doing extremely well with what we're doing right now.
All right, well, if there are no other questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion.
I move the town council approve ordinance number 7, series of 26 on first reading and continue and set the second reading for May 12th, 26.
And before there's a second, Rick, did you want that to include an amendment for an appeal of a modification decision to town council, or just leave it as it is?
Yeah, I think that would help people through some of the barriers of doing the right thing, but they can't afford to do the whole thing. Maybe they can do, you know, what they need to do to protect their specific site, but if it was a natural disaster or something that took the roof off of somebody's house, you know, that would be a different story.
Okay, so
if that's agreeable.
Sure. So the motion to approve with that amendment, I guess is what's
second?
on the floor.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Angela.
Angela, thank you. Okay. Well, and that's who we're going to begin our roll call with. Angela Anderson.
Yes.
Rick Stevens.
Yes.
Greg Shaffrin.
Yes, and this has that amendment.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
David Knight.
Yes.
Hannah Berman.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, good catch. All right, next up, we have item 7C, resolution number 21, series of 2026, resolution of the Town Council of Basalt, Colorado, approving a contract for design and entitlement services for the development of a new public service building, and this is Gloria and Catherine. Catherine, thanks for sticking around. Hopefully, you were able to get some other things done.
Yeah, I started working after a while. And thanks for Roger for sticking around too. He's on the line as well. But tonight, staff has before you a contract to consider for design and entitlement services for the Basalt Public Services Building. The need, James, you can go next slide, thanks, sorry. The need for a consolidated public services building was identified in the 2020 master plan. This new facility would house both the police and the public works department. The project was prioritized in the 2025 strategic work plan, and prioritized for further advancement this year in 2026. The need for the facility is driven by the long-standing space and functional limitations that both departments face. Both department facilities do not meet modern operational safety or staffing standards. Next, please. The proposed project site is located southwest of the original road and Highway 82 intersection. The project site seeks to do more than add space. It seeks to reorganize and consolidate the departments into a secure, efficient, and purpose-built facility. You see on this slide before you the two properties that the town currently owns. Prior to issuance of this RFP for design and entitlement services, the town worked with Wold Architects to do a detailed needs assessment for each department, and that resulted in a blocking diagram, which you all saw and was presented to you in December of last year. Town advertised a request for proposals to provide design and entitlement services for that development. James, next slide, please. And the proposers were asked to perform this work as part of 3 separate tasks. The first task being public outreach and programming to inform the sketch plan application. The second task was that PUD sketch plan application. And the third is a combined preliminary and final PUD application. That combined preliminary and final is not typical of our process, but knowing that this is a high priority for council, that was one step we felt comfortable taking in just creating some efficiency in this process. Currently, the town staff is progressing also an annexation application for one of those 2 properties, which is not in town limits. And you'll be seeing that a bit later this summer. The town received 10 proposals from well-qualified firms and interviewed the top 3 teams. Ultimately, the selection committee selected a team led by Wold Architects and Engineers as the top proposing team. Next slide, James. Thanks. The Wold team brings a depth of knowledge and proven success as we've worked with them previously, and they are additionally supported by Lionheart, previously Connect One Design, and Roaring Fork Engineering for their efforts. On the next slide, the team's proposed schedule outlines their completion of this phase of work in March of 2027. And at that time, the town would opt to, further the construction process. The next step would be construction level documents, but we'll of course be keeping you all informed on those next steps as we go. Tonight, town staff recommends entering into a contract with Wold Architects and Engineers to complete the design entitlements as outlined in the RFP. And as I mentioned, we also have Roger Schrofer, I probably butchered your last name, sorry, on the line, who can answer any additional questions you have of Wold, and perhaps you'll just say hello, he's presented to you in the past, but we're here to answer what questions y'all have.
Let's see this. Okay, no. Here. What questions or comments do we have?
Well, thanks, Jeff, for you guys for addressing the compression of the review timeline, because that's also going to create affordability in the project, I think. And I think there should be an incentive if you finish the scope discussion before March 27, personally, somehow. If you can compress it even more. I mean, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. Sometimes that happens.
Some of it'll be up to you guys, right?
Bonus.
Yeah. I think we should initiate a public outreach process and start understanding how that's going to go, and then maybe we can.
And we are doing that right now. So after this meeting, we'll be, right now, the first, I think we just published it, it's on Let's Talk Basalt. So we do have this project on Let's Talk Basalt right now, and then our survey is going to go live tomorrow to see if the community has the palette for a increase in tax, half-cent tax for the funding of this facility.
And I appreciate the approach with this, that, so we have that flexibility, like, let's make sure we set the table so we could get this done in as expeditious a manner as possible, but at the same time, really want the community to be able to reach out, give us those inputs, need to hear how they feel about, frankly, taxpayer dollars and the financial implications of it, but also understand like what they're getting and the long-term benefits and how, frankly, desperately this is needed, not just from like a functionality standpoint with police and public works in their current state, but also attracting and retaining talent and making sure, we can continue to provide the best services, not just now, but for, again, our time horizon is very long, so not just now, decades in the future, right? This is what this sets the table for. So I think having that community dialogue and setting the stage so that we can move quickly once we get those inputs with Wold, I mean, it's great. I think you guys teed this up really nicely, so thank you.
I just had one note. The resolution does authorize me to make some changes to the agreement, which I will have, that are more kind of technical government contracting things that don't exist within the Form AIA set. So just a note for.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments?
We want to honor our new counselor by asking him to make the motion.
If he'd like to make the motion, he's.
To approve this contract?
Or adopt the resolution.
To adopt resolution 9121, series of 2026.
Second.
Thank you both. It's been moved and seconded. Pam, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Let's begin with Rick Stevens.
Yep.
Greg Shaffrin.
Yes.
David Knight.
Yes.
Hannah Berman.
Yes.
And Angela Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. Long meeting, good meeting. And those of you watching, have a great evening. Thanks for sticking around, and we are adjourned.